Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Tonight we step into a place where time seems to breathe quietly between ancient pages, a place where knowledge sleeps in silence, yet whispers to those who are willing to listen. This is the story of the silent knowledge-filled nights of the ancient libraries, a journey into halls where centuries of wisdom rest beneath dust and candlelight. Imagine walking through a massive stone doorway late at night, the world outside fading into darkness, while inside thousands of manuscripts, scrolls, and forgotten books wait patiently on towering wooden shelves. In the ancient world, libraries were not simply buildings filled with books. They were sacred sanctuaries of human memory, places where scholars, philosophers, astronomers, and dreamers gathered to preserve the thoughts that shaped civilizations. As night fell and cities grew quiet, these libraries transformed into something almost mystical. Oil lamps flickered gently against walls carved with symbols, casting long shadows across rows of papyrus scrolls. The faint scent of ink, parchment, and old wood filled the air as scribes carefully copied texts by hand, preserving ideas that might otherwise vanish forever. In those quiet hours, knowledge moved silently from one generation to another. Among the most legendary of these places was the Great Library of the Ancient World, the vast archive that once stood in Alexandria, where scholars from distant lands traveled across deserts and seas to study mathematics, philosophy, medicine, and astronomy. Inside its chambers, languages from different cultures mixed together as Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian ideas blended into a powerful exchange of knowledge. But beyond the famous libraries known to history, there were countless hidden archives scattered across monasteries, royal courts, and remote temples. Some were built deep within mountains, others beneath palace walls, guarded by monks or scholars who believed knowledge itself was sacred. During the night, when torches dimmed and footsteps echoed softly through stone corridors, these libraries felt alive. Each manuscript carried the voice of someone who had lived hundreds or even thousands of years earlier. A philosopher questioning the nature of the universe, a healer describing herbal medicines, an astronomer mapping the stars, or a storyteller recording myths that explained the mysteries of life. For the scholars who spent their nights among these texts, reading was not simply learning, it was like speaking with the past. Many ancient thinkers believed the quiet of night was the perfect time for discovery. With the world asleep, the mind could wander freely through ideas, connecting knowledge in ways daylight often distracted from. Some scholars spent entire nights translating foreign manuscripts, slowly decoding scripts that held secrets from distant civilizations. Others compared philosophical arguments written centuries apart, trying to understand humanity's deepest questions about existence, morality, and destiny. The silence of the library allowed concentration so deep that hours passed unnoticed, the only sound being the turning of fragile pages or the scratching of a quill against parchment. Yet these peaceful halls also carried a sense of fragility, because knowledge has always been vulnerable to time, war, and neglect. Throughout history, many ancient libraries disappeared through fires, invasions, or simple decay. When a library burned, it was not only a building that vanished, but entire chapters of human understanding. Lost scientific discoveries, forgotten philosophies, and stories never heard again were reduced to ash. That is why the surviving manuscripts we still have today are considered priceless treasures. They remind us that knowledge is both powerful and delicate, something that must be protected by each generation. Even today, when digital screens replace scrolls and global databases hold more information than any ancient library ever could, the spirit of those silent nights still exists. Somewhere in the world, researchers sit in dim reading rooms surrounded by centuries-old books, continuing the same tradition of curiosity and discovery. They open fragile pages written by hands long gone, and in that moment the past speaks again. The ancient libraries may have grown quiet, but their wisdom continues to echo through time, reminding us that every civilization leaves behind thoughts waiting to be rediscovered. And perhaps that is the most beautiful mystery of all. In the stillness of a library at night, when the world outside sleeps, knowledge does not rest. It waits patiently for the next curious mind to awaken it. The night had already wrapped the ancient city in silence when the massive wooden doors of the old library slowly closed, sealing inside a world that few people truly understood. While the streets outside faded into darkness and the last market fires died away, the library awakened in its own quiet way. This was not simply a building of stone and pillars, it was a sanctuary of knowledge, a silent ocean of ideas preserved on fragile scrolls and manuscripts. Inside the towering hallways, shelves carved from dark cedar would stretch toward the high ceiling, filled with thousands of texts written across centuries by philosophers, astronomers, historians, and dreamers. Each scroll carried a fragment of humanity's memory. During the day, the library welcomed scholars, travelers, and students, but at night it became something different, almost sacred. Oil lamps flickered softly along the corridors, casting golden light across the ancient walls where faded symbols and carvings told stories of long-forgotten rulers and civilizations. The air smelled of parchment, ink, and dust that had quietly settled over decades. In the deepest chamber of the library, a young scholar named Aaron carefully unrolled a delicate scroll that had not been opened for many years. He had spent weeks searching through the catalog records of the library, following strange references written by older scholars who claimed that certain texts hidden within the archives held knowledge lost to the outside world. Aaron was not searching for ordinary history. He was searching for understanding. Since childhood, he had been fascinated by the idea that ancient civilizations might have known things modern people had forgotten, mysterious sciences, forgotten philosophies, and hidden truths about the universe itself. Tonight, the quiet of the library felt heavier than usual. Outside, the wind brushed gently against the stone walls, creating a faint whisper that echoed through the corridors like distant voices. Aaron leaned closer to the scroll beneath the lamp's light, his eyes scanning lines written in an ancient script that few scholars could read. The writing described a network of legendary libraries scattered across the ancient world, secret archives where knowledge was protected from war, politics, and the chaos of human history. According to the text, these libraries communicated with each other through scholars who traveled across continents carrying copies of rare manuscripts. It was an idea that felt almost unbelievable, yet something about the careful details in the scroll made Aaron wonder if there was truth hidden within the story. As he continued reading, the library around him seemed to grow even quieter, as if the walls themselves were listening. Somewhere far down the corridor, a loose wooden shelf creaked softly, breaking the silence for just a moment before everything returned to stillness. Aaron paused and lifted his head, staring into the dim hallway beyond the lamp's reach. For a brief second, he felt the strange sensation that he was not alone, that the ancient building carried the presence of countless scholars who had once walked these same halls searching for answers. The scroll described something even more mysterious. Certain texts were said to be sealed within hidden chambers of the library, protected by codes and symbols that only a few trusted scholars understood. These manuscripts, the scroll claimed, contained knowledge too powerful or dangerous to be widely known. Some spoke of advanced astronomy far beyond the understanding of their time, while others recorded philosophical ideas that challenged the beliefs of entire empires. Aaron's heart began to beat faster as he read these words. If such texts truly existed, they could change how history itself was understood. But the scroll offered only hints, mentioning that the entrance to one of these hidden archives might exist somewhere within the oldest section of the library, the wing built centuries earlier when the first scholars established this place as a sanctuary of knowledge. That wing had been closed for years due to the fragile condition of its walls and shelves, and few people had entered it recently. Aaron slowly rolled the scroll closed and sat quietly, staring at the lamp flame dancing in the darkness. His mind raced with possibilities. Was the story merely an old legend repeated by scholars who loved mysteries, or was there truly something hidden within the silent depths of this ancient building? The thought alone filled him with both excitement and unease. Around him, the library remained silent, its endless shelves guarding secrets written by countless hands across generations. For centuries, these halls had preserved knowledge that survived wars, collapsing empires, and the slow erosion of time itself. And now, on this quiet night, it seemed possible that one curious reader might be standing at the edge of a discovery buried within those forgotten pages. Aaron rose slowly from his desk and looked toward the shadowed corridor that led to the abandoned wing of the library. The lamp flame trembled slightly as if stirred by an unseen breath of air. Somewhere within those dark halls, the past was waiting, silent yet full of whispers that only the patient could hear. And without fully realizing it, Aaron took his first step toward a mystery that had been sleeping inside the ancient library for hundreds of years. Aaron stood for a moment in the dim light of the reading chamber, his mind still echoing with the mysterious words written in the ancient scroll. The idea that hidden archives might exist somewhere inside the oldest wing of the library stirred something deep inside him, a mixture of curiosity and caution. 4-generation scholars had studied within these walls, yet no one openly spoke about secret chambers or forbidden manuscripts. Perhaps the story was only an exaggeration passed down through time, but the careful details within the scroll suggested otherwise. Aaron picked up the small oil lamp from the table and slowly stepped into the long corridor that led away from the main hall. The library at night felt completely different from the busy place it became during the day. Now every footstep echoed softly across the stone floor, and the towering shelves looked like silent guardians watching over the fragile knowledge they carried. The flame of the lamp flickered gently as he walked, throwing shifting shadows across the ancient walls where faint carvings of symbols and geometric patterns still remained from the earliest days of the library's construction. Aaron followed the narrow corridor toward the forgotten wing mentioned in the scroll. That part of the building had been closed for many years because the wooden shelves were old and the stone ceiling showed signs of cracking. Few scholars bothered to go there anymore since most of the texts had been moved to safer sections long ago. Yet the scroll had clearly stated that the oldest wing once served as the original archive of the library, a place where the first keepers of knowledge stored rare manuscripts brought from distant lands. As Aaron approached the end of the corridor, the air grew cooler and the silence deeper. The doorway to the abandoned wing stood partly sealed by a heavy wooden barrier placed there decades earlier, but a narrow gap remained where the boards had shifted over time. Aaron hesitated for a moment. Entering a restricted section without permission could cause trouble, yet his curiosity had already taken control. Carefully lifting the lamp higher, he slipped through the opening and stepped into the forgotten part of the library. The difference was immediate. Dust lay thick across the stone floor, and the shelves here looked far older than those in the main hall. Some had partially collapsed, leaving scattered fragments of wood and old parchment beneath them. The faint smell of age filled the air, a mixture of dried paper and stone that had absorbed centuries of silence. Aaron moved slowly through the chamber, his eyes scanning the rows of abandoned shelves. Most of the scroll holders were empty, but occasionally he saw bundles of manuscripts tied with faded cords, their surfaces covered with scripts written in languages he barely recognized. He felt as if he had stepped backward in time, into a place where the voices of ancient scholars still lingered quietly in the shadows. As he walked deeper into the wing, he noticed something unusual carved into one section of the wall. Unlike the decorative patterns in the newer parts of the library, this carving formed a series of strange symbols arranged in a circular design. Aaron moved closer, raising the lamp so the light fell directly across the markings. They looked deliberate, not merely decoration. Some of the symbols resembled letters from several different ancient alphabets, while others appeared almost mathematical, like coded diagrams. Aaron's heart beat faster as he remembered the scroll mentioning hidden chambers protected by symbols known only to certain scholars. Could this be one of those signs? He ran his fingers lightly across the cold stone, tracing the shapes while trying to recall anything similar he had seen in the library's catalog records. The circle of symbols seemed to form a pattern, as if each mark pointed toward a specific direction. For a moment nothing happened, and Aaron wondered if he was simply imagining connections where none existed. Then his lamp light shifted slightly, and he noticed a narrow vertical line running down the center of the carved circle. It was so faint that it almost blended with the stone surface, but once he saw it, he realized it might mark the edge of a hidden doorway. The idea sent a chill through him. If there truly was a hidden entrance behind this wall, it meant the ancient scroll might not be a legend after all. The library might be hiding knowledge that had been sealed away for centuries. Aaron carefully pressed against the stone surface near the line, testing whether it might move. At first, nothing changed, but when he applied pressure near one of the carved symbols, he heard a faint grinding sound deep within the wall. The noise echoed softly through the abandoned chamber, startling him so much that he stepped back quickly. For a few seconds, the library returned to complete silence, as if deciding whether to reveal its secret or keep it hidden. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, the stone panel shifted inward by a small distance, releasing a thin breath of cold air from the darkness beyond. Aaron stared at the narrow opening, his lamp flame trembling slightly in the draft that escaped from inside the hidden passage. Whatever lay behind that ancient wall had not been disturbed for an incredibly long time. The silent library around him seemed to watch patiently as he stepped closer to the mysterious entrance, realizing that he was no longer simply exploring old shelves and forgotten scrolls. He had just uncovered a doorway leading into a secret that the ancient keepers of knowledge had carefully hidden from the world. And somewhere in the darkness beyond that opening, the true mystery of the library was waiting. The narrow stone panel continued to shift slowly inward until a dark opening appeared behind the carved symbols, revealing a passage that had clearly remained hidden for centuries. Aaron stood frozen for a moment, the warm glow of his oil lamp trembling slightly as a faint current of cold air drifted out from the secret corridor. The silence inside the abandoned wing suddenly felt deeper, as if the ancient library itself had been holding this secret breath for hundreds of years. Aaron's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped closer to the opening. The hidden passage was narrow, just wide enough for a person to walk through, and the stone floor sloped gently downward into darkness. Dust covered everything, untouched by footsteps for an unimaginable length of time. For a moment, doubt crept into his mind. What if the scroll had been wrong? What if this passage led only to an empty storage chamber or a forgotten cellar beneath the library? Yet curiosity quickly pushed the doubt aside. The ancient symbols carved into the wall, the hidden mechanism that opened the panel, and the cool air escaping from the darkness all suggested that this passage had once served an important purpose. Carefully lifting the lamp in front of him, Aaron stepped inside. The passage swallowed the warm light of the reading hall behind him, and the stone panel slowly slid back into place with a deep grinding sound that echoed through the narrow tunnel. Aaron turned quickly, but the entrance had already sealed itself, leaving only a solid wall where the opening had been. Now there was no easy way back. For a few seconds he stood perfectly still listening. The only sound was the faint crackle of the lamp flame and the quiet rhythm of his own breathing. The tunnel walls were carved from rough stone, and faint markings ran along them at regular intervals, almost like guides left by the builders of the passage. As Aaron moved deeper, he noticed that these markings resembled the same strange symbols he had seen in the circular carving outside. Perhaps they served as a map or a coded message meant for the scholars who once used this hidden path. The passage curved gently downward, leading farther beneath the library. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell of ancient dust mixed with the faint scent of stone that had remained sealed away from the outside world. After several minutes of careful walking, the tunnel finally opened into a small chamber. Aaron raised the lamp higher, and the light revealed something that made his breath catch. The room was lined with narrow stone shelves carved directly into the walls, and on those shelves rested dozens of sealed wooden boxes. Each one was carefully bound with thin metal bands that had darkened with age, yet they appeared remarkably well preserved. Aaron approached the nearest shelf slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. If these boxes contained manuscripts, they might hold texts that had not been read for centuries. The ancient scroll had mentioned hidden archives protected by trusted scholars, and this chamber looked exactly like such a place. He gently brushed dust away from the lid of one box and noticed a symbol engraved into the wood. It matched one of the markings he had seen in the carved circle above the hidden doorway. That meant these boxes were not randomly stored. They were organized using the same mysterious code. With careful hands, Aaron lifted the lid. The hinges creaked softly as the box opened, revealing a collection of tightly rolled scrolls wrapped in protective cloth. The cloth itself looked ancient but surprisingly intact, suggesting that whoever sealed this chamber had taken great care to preserve its contents. Aaron unwrapped one scroll and slowly opened it beneath the lamp's light. The writing that appeared on the parchment was unlike anything he had seen before. It was not just a historical record or philosophical essay. The text combined diagrams, star maps, mathematical patterns, and strange geometric shapes that seemed almost scientific in nature. Some of the symbols described the movement of celestial bodies with remarkable accuracy, far beyond what most ancient astronomers were believed to understand. Aaron stared at the diagrams with growing amazement. If these manuscripts were authentic, they could challenge everything historians believed about the knowledge of ancient scholars. Whoever had written these texts possessed a deep understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and natural patterns that felt far ahead of their time. As he carefully rolled the scroll back together, a sudden realization passed through his mind. This chamber was probably only one part of the hidden archive mentioned in the mysterious scroll he had discovered earlier. If there was one secret room beneath the library, there might be others connected by the same hidden network of passages. The ancient keepers of knowledge may have created an entire underground archive designed to protect rare and powerful ideas from destruction. The thought sent a mixture of excitement and unease through him. Discovering this chamber was already an extraordinary event, but exploring deeper might reveal secrets that had remained hidden for hundreds of years. Aaron slowly closed the wooden box and looked around the silent chamber. The shelves of sealed manuscripts seemed to watch him patiently, like silent guardians of forgotten wisdom. Somewhere beyond the walls of this room, more passages might be waiting to be discovered. And now that he had stepped into the hidden world beneath the ancient library, there was no turning away from the mystery that had quietly slept here for centuries. The narrow stone panel continued to shift slowly inward until a dark opening appeared behind the carved symbols, revealing a passage that had clearly remained hidden for centuries. Aaron stood frozen for a moment, the warm glow of his oil lamp trembling slightly as a faint current of cold air drifted out from the secret corridor. The silence inside the abandoned wing suddenly felt deeper, as if the ancient library itself had been holding this secret breath for hundreds of years. Aaron's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped closer to the opening. The hidden passage was narrow, just wide enough for a person to walk through, and the stone floor sloped gently downward into darkness. Dust covered everything, untouched by footsteps for an unimaginable length of time. For a moment, doubt crept into his mind. What if the scroll had been wrong? What if this passage led only to an empty storage chamber or a forgotten cellar beneath the library? Yet curiosity quickly pushed the doubt aside. The ancient symbols carved into the wall, the hidden mechanism that opened the panel, and the cool air escaping from the darkness all suggested that this passage had once served an important purpose. Carefully lifting the lamp in front of him, Aaron stepped inside. The passage swallowed the warm light of the reading hall behind him, and the stone panels slowly slid back into place with a deep grinding sound that echoed through the narrow tunnel. Aaron turned quickly, but the entrance had already sealed itself, leaving only a solid wall where the opening had been. Now there was no easy way back. For a few seconds he stood perfectly still listening. The only sound was the faint crackle of the lamp flame and the quiet rhythm of his own breathing. The tunnel walls were carved from rough stone, and faint markings ran along them at regular intervals, almost like guides left by the builders of the passage. As Aaron moved deeper, he noticed that these markings resembled the same strange symbols he had seen in the circular carving outside. Perhaps they served as a map or a coded message meant for the scholars who once used this hidden path. The passage curved gently downward, leading farther beneath the library. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell of ancient dust mixed with the faint scent of stone that had remained sealed away from the outside world. After several minutes of careful walking, the tunnel finally opened into a small chamber. Aaron raised the lamp higher, and the light revealed something that made his breath catch. The room was lined with narrow stone shelves carved directly into the walls, and on those shelves rested dozens of sealed wooden boxes. Each one was carefully bound with thin metal bands that had darkened with age, yet they appeared remarkably well preserved. Aaron approached the nearest shelf slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. If these boxes contained manuscripts, they might hold texts that had not been read for centuries. The ancient scroll had mentioned hidden archives protected by trusted scholars, and this chamber looked exactly like such a place. He gently brushed dust away from the lid of one box and noticed a symbol engraved into the wood. It matched one of the markings he had seen in the carved circle above the hidden doorway. That meant these boxes were not randomly stored. They were organized using the same mysterious code. With careful hands, Aaron lifted the lid. The hinges creaked softly as the box opened, revealing a collection of tightly rolled scrolls wrapped in protective cloth. The cloth itself looked ancient but surprisingly intact, suggesting that whoever sealed this chamber had taken great care to preserve its contents. Aaron unwrapped one scroll and slowly opened it beneath the lamp's light. The writing that appeared on the parchment was unlike anything he had seen before. It was not just a historical record or philosophical essay. The text combined diagrams, star maps, mathematical patterns, and strange geometric shapes that seemed almost scientific in nature. Some of the symbols described the movement of celestial bodies with remarkable accuracy, far beyond what most ancient astronomers were believed to understand. Aaron stared at the diagrams with growing amazement. If these manuscripts were authentic, they could challenge everything historians believed about the knowledge of ancient scholars. Whoever had written these texts possessed a deep understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and natural patterns that felt far ahead of their time. As he carefully rolled the scroll back together, a sudden realization passed through his mind. This chamber was probably only one part of the hidden archive mentioned in the mysterious scroll he had discovered earlier. If there was one secret room beneath the library, there might be others connected by the same hidden network of passages. The ancient keepers of knowledge may have created an entire underground archive designed to protect rare and powerful ideas from destruction. The thought sent a mixture of excitement and unease through him. Discovering this chamber was already an extraordinary event, but exploring deeper might reveal secrets that had remained hidden for hundreds of years. Aaron slowly closed the wooden box and looked around the silent chamber. The shelves of sealed manuscripts seemed to watch him patiently, like silent guardians of forgotten wisdom. Somewhere beyond the walls of this room, more passages might be waiting to be discovered. And now that he had stepped into the hidden world beneath the ancient library, there was no turning away from the mystery that had quietly slept here for centuries. Aaron stood quietly in the center of the enormous underground hall, his oil lamp casting a soft circle of light that barely touched the towering stone pillars around him. The air here felt older, colder, and heavier than the chambers above, as if this place had remained sealed away from the world for centuries longer. The carved map on the central pillar held his attention completely. Several narrow passageways were etched into the stone, each marked with the same mysterious symbols he had already seen on the wooden boxes and hidden walls. These markings were clearly not random decorations. They were part of a system, a coded language created by the ancient keepers of this underground archive to organize knowledge and guide only the most trusted scholars through its depths. Aaron slowly stepped closer to the pillar, studying the map more carefully. One passage was marked with a symbol resembling a star surrounded by smaller circles, similar to the astronomical diagrams he had seen earlier. Another passage carried a symbol that looked like a leaf and branching roots, which might represent botanical or medical knowledge. A third path bore a more complex geometric shape formed from overlapping triangles and circles, a symbol that Aaron could not immediately understand. The more he examined the map, the more he realized that this underground network was not simply a hidden storage place. It was designed as a carefully organized sanctuary of knowledge, perhaps created during a time when scholars feared that valuable discoveries might be lost during wars, invasions, or the collapse of powerful kingdoms. The ancient guardians of this library must have believed that the survival of knowledge itself depended on secrecy. As Aaron's eyes traced the carved pathways on the pillar, he noticed something unusual near the base of the map. A smaller symbol had been carved beneath the others, one that looked like a simple flame enclosed within a circle. It was different from the symbols marking the passages. Instead of pointing toward a specific corridor, it appeared almost like a warning or a key to understanding the entire map. Aaron tilted the lamp closer, studying the flame symbol with growing curiosity. Something about it felt familiar, though he could not immediately remember where he had seen it before. Then a sudden memory returned to him. Earlier that night, when he first examined the mysterious scroll in the main library hall, there had been a small drawing near the edge of the parchment, an almost identical flame enclosed by a circle. At the time, he had assumed it was merely a decorative mark or the personal symbol of the scholar who wrote the scroll. Now he realized it might have been far more important. It might represent the ancient order of scholars responsible for protecting these hidden archives. The thought sent a quiet shiver through him. If such an order once existed, they must have worked in secrecy for generations, carefully preserving discoveries they believed were too valuable or too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. Aaron turned his attention back to the passages shown on the map. Each corridor seemed to lead toward deeper sections of the underground complex. The silence surrounding him made every decision feel heavier, as if the ancient library itself was waiting to see which path he would choose. After a long moment of consideration, he decided to follow the passage marked with the star symbol. The astronomical scroll he had already discovered fascinated him deeply, and if that symbol truly represented knowledge of the stars, then that corridor might lead to even more remarkable discoveries. Holding the lamp carefully in front of him, Aaron stepped into the chosen passage. The corridor was narrow and slightly curved, its stone walls covered with faint markings similar to those in the first hidden tunnel. The floor sloped downward again, leading deeper beneath the ancient library. As he walked, the silence became almost overwhelming. The world above, the city streets, the busy scholars, the familiar reading halls, felt incredibly distant now. Here, beneath layers of stone and time, only the quiet guardianship of knowledge remained. After several minutes, the corridor widened into another chamber, smaller than the Great Hall but still impressive in its design. Along the curved walls stood tall stone pedestals, each supporting a sealed container carved from dark polished wood. Above every pedestal, the same star symbol had been engraved into the stone. Aaron's excitement grew stronger as he approached the nearest container. Carefully lifting the lid, he found a set of beautifully preserved scrolls, their surfaces decorated with delicate star charts drawn in deep blue ink. When he slowly unrolled one beneath the lamp's glow, the diagram that appeared was breathtaking. It showed a detailed map of constellations far more accurate than any Aaron had ever studied before. The positions of stars were measured with remarkable precision, and strange notes written beside them seemed to describe patterns in their movements across long periods of time. Some of the calculations even hinted at an understanding of planetary cycles that modern scholars were only beginning to explore. Aaron felt a deep sense of wonder as he realized that these hidden archives might contain centuries of lost scientific observations. Ancient astronomers may have studied the sky with far greater dedication and accuracy than history remembered. As he carefully rolled the scroll closed again, a new thought entered his mind. If one corridor held such knowledge of the stars, then the other passages marked on the map might guard equally extraordinary secrets. Somewhere deeper within the underground network, entire fields of forgotten wisdom could still be waiting in silence. And standing there in the dim glow of his lamp, surrounded by star maps drawn by minds long gone, Aaron understood that the ancient library beneath the city was far more than a hidden archive. It was a sleeping world of knowledge, patiently waiting for someone brave enough to continue exploring its endless mysteries. Aaron remained in the chamber of star-marked pedestals for several quiet minutes, holding the ancient scroll in his hands as the small flame of his oil lamp trembled gently in the still air. The detailed star charts he had just examined were unlike anything he had seen in the official records of the library above. Whoever created these maps had studied the night sky with extraordinary patience and precision, recording the slow movement of stars across years and perhaps even generations. Aaron carefully returned the scroll to its container and closed the wooden lid, his mind racing with possibilities. If these hidden archives truly contained scientific observations far ahead of their time, then the ancient scholars who built this underground sanctuary must have possessed knowledge that history had somehow forgotten or deliberately concealed. The quiet chamber seemed almost alive with the presence of those long-gone astronomers who had once stood in this very place, studying the heavens and preserving their discoveries in secret. Aaron slowly walked along the curved wall of the chamber, examining the other pedestals beneath the carved star symbols. Each container likely held more scrolls similar to the one he had opened, perhaps recording decades of astronomical observations. But something else caught his attention near the far side of the room. The stone wall there carried a narrow vertical seam, almost invisible unless the lamplight struck it at the right angle. Curious, Aaron stepped closer and lifted the lamp higher. The seam clearly marked the outline of another concealed doorway, similar to the hidden entrance he had discovered earlier in the abandoned wing of the library. It seemed the ancient builders of this underground complex had designed many secret passages, perhaps to protect the archives from intruders or to guide trusted scholars through different sections without revealing the full structure to outsiders. Aaron ran his fingers lightly across the seam in the stone, searching for the mechanism that might open it. After a moment, he noticed a small circular indentation carved just beneath the star symbol above the doorway. It looked almost like a keyhole, though no ordinary key would fit such a design. As he examined it more closely, he remembered the small metal clasp that had been attached to the cloth wrapping around the first astronomical scroll he had opened. The clasp bore the same star symbol engraved into its surface. Quickly returning to the pedestal, Aaron retrieved the scroll and carefully removed the small metal piece from the cloth. When he placed it into the circular indentation, it fit perfectly. For a moment, nothing happened, but then a faint grinding sound echoed within the wall as hidden stone mechanisms slowly shifted into motion. The concealed doorway slid inward, revealing another passage descending deeper into the underground network. A faint breath of cold air flowed from the darkness beyond, causing the flame of Aaron's lamp to flicker wildly. He hesitated briefly at the entrance. Each step deeper into this forgotten labyrinth of knowledge brought greater discovery, yet also greater mystery. The ancient keepers of this archive had clearly gone to extraordinary lengths to hide their work, and Aaron wondered what kind of knowledge required such careful secrecy. Still, his curiosity had already carried him too far to turn back. Holding the lamp firmly, he stepped into the newly opened passage. This corridor felt older than the others he had traveled through. The stone walls were rougher, and faint carvings lined the surface at irregular intervals, forming patterns that looked almost like constellations themselves. As Aaron walked slowly forward, he realized these markings might represent the same star maps recorded in the scrolls above, perhaps serving as a symbolic guide for scholars navigating the underground halls. The passage continued for several minutes before opening into yet another hidden chamber. This room, however, was different from the archive halls he had seen so far. Instead of shelves or pedestals filled with manuscripts, the center of the chamber held a large circular stone table carved directly from the floor. Surrounding it were several tall pillars, each covered with intricate diagrams and mathematical symbols. Aaron approached the table cautiously, raising the lamp to illuminate its surface. What he saw there made his breath catch with astonishment. The table was engraved with a massive map of the night sky, far more complex than the smaller charts contained in the scrolls. Hundreds of tiny star points were etched into the stone, connected by thin lines that traced the shapes of constellations. But at the center of the map was something even more extraordinary, a detailed diagram showing the movement of several celestial bodies around a bright central sphere. Aaron stared at the design in disbelief. The diagram appeared to describe a system in which planets revolved around a central star, an idea that many ancient cultures had never fully accepted. Yet here it was, carved permanently into the stone floor of a hidden chamber beneath the library. The discovery filled Aaron with awe and confusion. If scholars centuries ago had understood such advanced astronomical concepts, why had that knowledge disappeared from the historical record? Why had it been hidden instead of shared with the world above? As he slowly circled the stone table, studying the engraved sky map, Aaron began to realize that the underground archive was not simply preserving knowledge. It was protecting ideas that might once have challenged powerful beliefs or threatened established authorities. The deeper he explored, the more it seemed that this secret library had been created to guard truths that the outside world was not ready to accept. And now, standing alone in the quiet glow of his lamp, Aaron understood that the silent nights of the ancient library were hiding discoveries far more profound than he had ever imagined. Aaron stood silently beside the massive circular stone table, his lamp casting a warm, trembling glow across the engraved map of the heavens. The chamber felt ancient beyond imagination, as if it had been carved during the earliest days of the library's existence. The detailed celestial diagram beneath his feet continued to pull his attention again and again. The central sphere surrounded by orbiting bodies clearly suggested a system where planets revolved around a star, an idea that contradicted many of the traditional teachings preserved in the official records of the library above. Aaron slowly walked around the stone table, studying every line and symbol carved into its surface. The engravings were incredibly precise, showing not only the positions of stars but also subtle curves that appeared to represent their movements across time. Whoever created this map must have spent decades observing the night sky with extraordinary patience. The realization filled him with deep respect for the ancient scholars who had once worked in this hidden chamber, quietly expanding humanity's understanding of the universe, while the world above remained unaware of their discoveries. As Aaron lifted the lamp higher, he noticed something else along the outer edge of the stone table. Small engraved markers surrounded the circular map at equal distances, almost like the points of a compass. Each marker carried a familiar symbol, the same strange coded signs he had seen on the wooden archive boxes and the underground corridor map. These symbols seemed to connect every section of the hidden library network together, suggesting that this chamber might once have served as a central meeting place where trusted scholars gathered to study and exchange ideas. The thought made Aaron imagine groups of ancient astronomers standing here during quiet nights, debating the motion of the stars and recording their observations onto the scrolls preserved above. For a moment he felt as if the chamber still held faint echoes of those conversations, whispers of brilliant minds that had long since vanished into history. His attention was suddenly drawn to one of the tall pillars surrounding the table. Unlike the others, this pillar carried a vertical line of symbols carved deeply into the stone, forming what looked almost like a written message. Aaron moved closer and carefully traced the carvings with his eyes. The script was unfamiliar, yet certain shapes resembled characters from several ancient languages he had studied. Slowly, piece by piece, he began to recognize fragments of meaning. The message appeared to describe the purpose of the hidden archive itself. According to the carvings, the underground library had been created during a time when scholars feared that knowledge might be destroyed by war, political control, or religious conflict. To protect their discoveries, they formed a secret order dedicated to preserving the most valuable ideas of their age. These scholars built the underground chambers and sealed them with coded passages so that only those who understood the symbols could reach the archives. Aaron's heart raced as he continued interpreting the ancient message. It spoke of a guiding principle shared by the order: knowledge must survive even when civilizations fall. The scholars believed that human understanding moved forward slowly across generations, and if certain discoveries were lost, humanity might have to rediscover them centuries later. By hiding their most advanced knowledge beneath the library, they hoped to protect it until a future generation was ready to continue their work. Aaron stepped back from the pillar, overwhelmed by the significance of what he had just learned. The hidden chambers were not merely a forgotten storage space. They were part of a deliberate effort to safeguard humanity's intellectual progress. Every scroll, every diagram, every coded symbol was a piece of a larger mission carried out by scholars who believed that the survival of knowledge was more important than recognition or fame. As he turned his gaze back toward the circular star map, another detail caught his attention near the center of the table. A small circular indentation had been carved directly into the stone surface, positioned exactly at the location of the central star in the diagram. The shape of the indentation looked almost identical to the small keyhole mechanism he had discovered in the previous chamber. Aaron felt a surge of curiosity again. The ancient scholars had clearly designed many parts of this underground complex to respond to symbolic keys or markers. If this indentation functioned the same way, then it might open another hidden mechanism somewhere in the chamber. He carefully examined the astronomical scroll he had carried with him and noticed the same small metal clasp attached to its cloth wrapping. The clasp bore the star symbol once again, suggesting it might serve as another key. Slowly, almost holding his breath, Aaron placed the metal clasp into the circular indentation at the center of the stone table. For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber remained completely silent. Then, deep beneath the floor, a low rumbling vibration began to spread through the stone. Dust fell lightly from the pillars as ancient mechanisms awakened after centuries of stillness. Aaron quickly stepped back from the table as the engraved star map slowly began to shift. The central section of the stone surface rotated with a heavy grinding sound, revealing a dark opening beneath the carved heavens. From the depths of that hidden space rose a cold breath of air carrying the faint scent of ancient parchment. Aaron stared into the opening, realizing that the underground archive extended even deeper than he had imagined. Somewhere below this chamber, the most carefully guarded knowledge of the ancient scholars might still be waiting in silence. And as the stone mechanism finished its slow movement, revealing a narrow spiral staircase descending into darkness, Aaron understood that the mystery of the library's silent nights was far from over. Aaron stood at the edge of the newly revealed opening in the center of the stone table, staring down into the narrow spiral staircase that descended into darkness far below the chamber of the star map. The grinding sound of the ancient mechanism slowly faded until the underground hall returned to its deep and heavy silence. Only the soft crackling of his oil lamp remained, its trembling light reflecting against the carved pillars and the vast, celestial diagram now partially shifted aside. A cold breath of air continued to rise from the staircase, carrying with it the dry scent of stone and parchment that had not been disturbed for centuries. For a long moment, Aaron simply stood there, absorbing the reality of what he had discovered. Each hidden room he had entered revealed another layer of a secret network built by scholars who believed knowledge must be protected at all costs. Yet this staircase seemed different. The mechanisms that revealed it were more elaborate than any he had seen so far, suggesting that whatever lay below was perhaps the most carefully guarded part of the entire underground archive. Aaron tightened his grip on the lamp and stepped cautiously onto the first stone step. The spiral staircase curved tightly around a central column of rock, disappearing into shadows where the light of the lamp could barely reach. Each step was worn slightly smooth, hinting that long ago many scholars might have traveled this path during quiet nights when the library above was silent. The thought created a strange feeling in Aaron's mind, as if he were walking beside invisible companions from centuries past, following the same path they once took while carrying their discoveries deeper into the hidden world beneath the library. The descent felt long and slow. The temperature continued to drop, and the air became stiller the farther he traveled downward. Occasionally, faint carvings appeared along the walls of the staircase, small symbols similar to those he had already encountered throughout the underground chambers. Some resembled stars, others geometric shapes, and a few looked like flowing lines that might represent knowledge itself moving through time. Aaron wondered if these markings had been meant as a reminder to the scholars who used this passage, a quiet message that their work was part of something larger than a single generation. After what felt like many minutes of careful descent, the staircase finally opened into another chamber. Aaron raised the lamp slowly, and his breath caught as the light spread across the vast room. Unlike the archive halls above, this chamber appeared almost ceremonial in its design. The ceiling rose higher than any of the underground spaces he had seen so far, supported by enormous pillars carved with intricate patterns of stars, circles, and mathematical figures. The floor itself was arranged in a mosaic made from different shades of stone, forming a giant circular symbol that seemed to represent the unity of many fields of knowledge. Around the walls stood large stone shelves containing sealed containers, but these were far fewer than those in the archive halls. Instead, each container was larger and decorated with complex engravings, as if the objects inside were considered especially valuable. Aaron approached one of the containers slowly and brushed away the thin layer of dust covering its lid. The carving on its surface showed a pattern of interlocking shapes that resembled both a star and a flower, a design that seemed to symbolize the connection between astronomy and nature. When he gently lifted the lid, he found a collection of manuscripts unlike any he had seen before. Instead of simple scrolls, these texts were bound into early forms of books with carefully stitched pages. The writing inside combined diagrams, long explanations, and carefully measured observations about the natural world. Some pages described the movement of tides and their connection to the moon, while others explored mathematical relationships hidden within the patterns of plants and crystals. Aaron felt a growing sense of awe as he turned the pages slowly beneath the lamp's glow. These scholars had not only studied the stars, but had also tried to understand the deeper laws that connected the universe together. Their work suggested that mathematics, nature, and the heavens were all part of a single grand design. As he carefully returned the manuscript to its container, Aaron noticed something positioned at the center of the chamber. A tall stone pedestal stood upon the circular floor mosaic, and resting upon it was a single sealed object covered by a dark cloth. Unlike the other containers, this one carried a symbol Aaron had not yet seen anywhere else in the underground complex, a spiral shape surrounded by small radiating lines, almost like a star that was constantly unfolding. The object seemed to command the entire chamber, as if everything else had been arranged around it with deliberate purpose. Aaron slowly walked toward the pedestal, his curiosity stronger than ever. The silent underground library had already revealed extraordinary discoveries about ancient science and hidden knowledge, but something about this final chamber suggested that he had reached the deepest and most important part of the archive. The ancient scholars who built this place had gone to incredible lengths to protect their work, sealing it beneath layers of hidden passages and coded symbols. And now, standing before the mysterious object at the center of the chamber, Aaron felt certain that whatever lay beneath the dark cloth might hold the greatest secret of all, the final piece of knowledge that the keepers of the silent library had chosen to hide from the world above. Aaron stood quietly before the tall stone pedestal at the center of the chamber, the small flame of his oil lamp trembling as if it too sensed the importance of what lay beneath the dark cloth. The vast underground hall remained completely silent around him, its towering pillars and ancient stone mosaics watching like patient witnesses to a moment that had perhaps not occurred for centuries. Every hidden corridor, every coded symbol, and every sealed manuscript he had discovered so far seemed to lead to this very place. The scholars who built this underground sanctuary had clearly designed the chamber with deliberate purpose, placing the mysterious object at the center as if it represented the heart of all the knowledge preserved here. Aaron slowly stepped closer to the pedestal, his footsteps echoing softly across the circular mosaic floor. The spiral symbol carved into the stone base caught his attention again. Unlike the other symbols he had seen throughout the underground network, this one appeared more complex and almost alive in its design. The spiral expanded outward in delicate lines that resembled rays of light or streams of energy, suggesting motion and growth rather than simple organization. It felt less like a label and more like a philosophy carved into stone. Aaron carefully reached out and lifted the edge of the dark cloth covering the object. Dust particles drifted into the lamp's glow as the cloth slowly slid aside, revealing a rectangular stone box resting on the pedestal. The box itself was carved from a smooth black stone that seemed strangely polished despite the centuries that must have passed since it was placed there. Fine engravings covered its surface, forming patterns of stars, geometric shapes, and flowing lines that all connected toward the spiral symbol at the center of the lid. The craftsmanship was astonishing, far more intricate than the containers in the surrounding shelves. It was clear that whatever the box contained was considered extremely important by the ancient keepers of the library. Aaron leaned closer, examining the engravings carefully. The symbols appeared to form a story rather than simple decoration. Along one side of the lid, he noticed a sequence of images showing scholars observing the stars, recording their findings on scrolls, and then placing those scrolls inside underground chambers, like the ones he had explored. Another section of the carvings showed cities rising and falling, flames consuming great buildings, and libraries being destroyed by war. The final image depicted a group of scholars sealing knowledge within a hidden chamber while a spiral of light rose above them, almost like a promise that the ideas they protected would one day return to the world. Aaron felt a deep sense of respect for the people who had created this place. They had not hidden their knowledge out of fear alone, but out of hope that future generations might one day rediscover it when the time was right. With steady hands, he placed the lamp beside the pedestal and slowly lifted the lid of the black stone box. The hinges made a soft grinding sound as they moved for the first time in centuries. Inside the box rested a single large manuscript wrapped in layers of protective cloth. The cloth was marked with the same spiral symbol seen on the pedestal, confirming that this document was likely the most important piece of knowledge preserved within the entire underground archive. Aaron carefully unwrapped the cloth layer by layer until the manuscript beneath was revealed. Unlike the scrolls and early books he had seen earlier, this text was bound in a thick cover made from dark leather, its surface decorated with delicate silver lines forming another spiral pattern. When he opened the manuscript beneath the lamp's light, the pages inside were filled with dense writing, diagrams, and complex mathematical formulas. But what caught Aaron's attention most was the subject of the text. The manuscript appeared to describe a unified understanding of knowledge, an attempt by the ancient scholars to connect astronomy, mathematics, nature, and philosophy into one grand system. The diagrams showed patterns repeating across different scales of the universe, from the motion of galaxies to the growth of plants and the structure of crystals. According to the text, the scholars believed that all forms of knowledge were connected by underlying principles that govern the universe itself. Aaron's mind raced as he read the opening passages. This was not simply a record of discoveries. It was a guide for future thinkers, encouraging them to continue exploring the connections between different fields of understanding. The spiral symbol seemed to represent the idea that knowledge expands endlessly, growing outward with each generation that builds upon the discoveries of the past. As Aaron carefully turned another page, a loose sheet slipped from between the manuscript's pages and drifted gently onto the pedestal. Curious, he picked it up and brought it closer to the lamp. The sheet contained a short message written in a different handwriting than the rest of the text. It appeared to be a final note left by one of the last scholars who sealed the archive. The message spoke directly to whoever might one day discover the hidden library. It explained that the underground archive was not meant to remain hidden forever. Instead, it was meant to wait patiently until someone curious enough and determined enough uncovered the path through its many chambers. Only such a person, the note suggested, would truly understand the responsibility of preserving and sharing knowledge wisely. Aaron slowly lowered the page, the weight of its meaning settling deeply in his thoughts. The silent nights of the ancient library had guarded their secrets for centuries, waiting for someone willing to listen to the whispers of the past. And now, standing alone in the deepest chamber beneath the library, Aaron realized that he had become part of that long chain of discovery, one more mind entrusted with the knowledge that the ancient scholars had worked so carefully to protect. Aaron sat on the edge of the stone pedestal, the heavy manuscript open before him, the lamp's small flame casting flickering shadows across the vast underground chamber. The weight of what he had discovered pressed upon him more strongly than ever. Each page he turned revealed connections between disciplines he had never imagined could exist together. The orbits of distant planets aligned with the flow of rivers, the geometry of leaves mirrored in the motions of celestial bodies, and patterns in the human mind reflected in the structure of crystals. It was as if the ancient scholars had seen the universe, not as separate fields of study, but as a single living system, and they had tried to capture its intricate harmony in this hidden manuscript. For a long moment, Aaron simply traced the diagrams with his fingers, marveling at the care and precision that had gone into their creation. Every line, every curve, every symbol seemed deliberate, designed to convey truths that had survived the collapse of empires and the decay of centuries. The spiral motif recurred on nearly every page, always at the center of a diagram, suggesting a philosophy as much as a method, a belief that knowledge, once discovered, expands outward, touching everything it encounters, growing with each generation. He realized the manuscript was more than just a collection of observations. It was a guide, a bridge between the past and the future, carefully crafted to awaken the curiosity of anyone willing to follow its insights. As he continued reading, Aaron noticed subtle annotations in the margins. These notes appeared to have been added by later scholars who had contributed to the hidden archive over time. They were written in different scripts, some familiar, some completely foreign, yet they all expressed the same reverence for the knowledge being preserved. Some notes discussed the alignment of stars with seasonal changes, others suggested experiments to test patterns in plants, and a few hinted at philosophical insights about the balance between human understanding and the natural world. The depth and breadth of the information made Aaron's pulse quicken. This underground library was not merely a place of storage. It was a living testament to human curiosity, an invisible network of minds across centuries collaborating to safeguard the most profound truths they could perceive. The thought made him feel connected to something far greater than himself. Every hidden chamber, every sealed box, every coded passage he had traversed seemed to converge in this single room, in this single manuscript, as if all the layers of secrecy had been designed to prepare him for this moment. Aaron leaned closer to the pages, noticing a fold at the edge of the manuscript that revealed yet another layer beneath the surface. Carefully unfolding it, he found a smaller set of diagrams that illustrated a method for preserving knowledge beyond the limitations of parchment or scrolls. Symbols indicated techniques for creating materials that would endure time and decay, methods of encoding information in patterns visible only to those trained to recognize them. The idea fascinated him. It was as though the ancient scholars had anticipated the fragility of their work and taken extraordinary measures to ensure it could survive the ravages of centuries. A sudden sound from the far corner of the chamber startled him, a small clatter of falling dust or perhaps a displaced stone, but it reminded him that the underground halls were not entirely lifeless. The hidden passages he had yet to explore might conceal even more discoveries. He could feel the pull of curiosity urging him forward, deeper into the labyrinth of secret chambers beneath the library. Yet at the same time, a quiet reverence settled over him. This was a place where knowledge had been protected not for fame, power, or reward, but for the survival of ideas themselves. Each step further carried a weight of responsibility, a reminder that the manuscripts he now held in his hands were part of a trust spanning centuries. He closed the manuscript slowly, holding it against his chest for a moment, letting the weight of its significance sink in. The lamp's flame flickered and cast long shadows across the mosaic floor, the spiral pattern seeming to echo the philosophy etched throughout the text. Knowledge expands, connects, and evolves, but only through those who are patient, observant, and respectful of the past. Aaron realized that he could not rush through this discovery. The manuscripts, the boxes, the hidden mechanisms, and the symbols scattered throughout the underground halls were all part of a network designed for careful study and reflection, not for impulsive exploration. As he looked around the chamber, he noticed faint markings on the far wall that suggested another passage, perhaps leading to areas even deeper, where the oldest and most sensitive knowledge might be preserved. The idea that there was still more to uncover both excited and humbled him. Standing slowly, Aaron lifted the manuscript and cradled it carefully, letting his eyes wander over the stone mosaics, the pillars, and the shelves surrounding him. He understood that the silent nights of the ancient library were not merely a backdrop for discovery. They were the very essence of it. Every quiet corridor, every shadowed chamber, every hidden manuscript had waited patiently for someone like him to arrive, someone willing to listen, to observe, and to understand. With a deep breath, he stepped toward the edge of the chamber, ready to continue exploring the labyrinth beneath the city, aware that each new passage could hold revelations capable of reshaping everything he thought he knew. And as the lamplight trembled over the stone walls, Aaron felt the immense responsibility and honor of becoming the latest link in a chain of scholars who had preserved humanity's most precious secrets through the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the ancient library. Aaron carefully placed the manuscript back into the black stone box, the spiral symbol on its cover catching the flickering light of his lamp and sending thin shadows across the circular, mosaic floor. The chamber remained silent, yet it felt alive, as if the centuries of knowledge it protected were quietly observing him, judging his presence, and waiting to see what he would do next. He took a deep breath and allowed himself to look around the vast space once more. The towering pillars, etched with geometric patterns, stars, and flowing lines, seemed to pulse softly in the dim glow, guiding his eyes toward the far wall. There, partially obscured by shadows, were markings he had not noticed before, tiny symbols carved into the stone in careful sequences, almost like a path designed to be read only by someone who understood the language of the hidden archive. Aaron stepped closer, his curiosity overcoming the quiet awe that had held him still. As he traced the symbols with his fingertips, he realized they formed a kind of map, showing multiple corridors branching outward from the chamber in ways that were not represented on the larger maps he had seen earlier. Some passages were marked with the familiar star and spiral symbols, while others bore strange, abstract designs he had yet to decipher. The patterns suggested that these corridors led to areas of the archive meant for different disciplines. One for astronomy, one for botany and natural sciences, one possibly for philosophy, and even some that hinted at more esoteric knowledge, the kind that had been deliberately concealed from the general public. The idea sent a thrill of anticipation through him. The underground library was far more extensive than he had imagined, a labyrinth of wisdom spanning centuries and cultures, all preserved in secret to survive the threats of time and human error. Aaron carefully moved toward one of the passages marked with a series of small spiral symbols. The corridor was narrow, its stone walls carved with delicate designs that seemed almost to shimmer in the light of the lamp. Each step deeper carried him farther from the central chamber, and the temperature dropped slightly as the air grew colder and drier. Dust motes floated in the lamp's glow, and the silence became even more profound, broken only by the soft scrape of his shoes against the stone floor. As he followed the spiraling path, Aaron noticed faint alcoves carved into the walls at regular intervals. Inside each alcove rested a single sealed container, each engraved with symbols he had seen in earlier chambers. Some containers were small and simple, holding just a few scrolls, while others were larger, suggesting that the contents were of particular importance. He paused at one alcove and lifted the lid of a container with a geometric pattern he had not yet encountered. Inside were scrolls filled with meticulous diagrams and calculations related to the movement of tides and the phases of the moon. The notes indicated that ancient scholars had observed lunar and solar cycles with incredible accuracy, recording patterns that modern science had only recently begun to rediscover. Aaron felt a deep sense of wonder as he carefully returned the scrolls to their container. Every chamber he entered, every passage he traversed, confirmed that the keepers of this underground library had devoted their lives to preserving knowledge that might otherwise have been lost to history. It was a network of minds across generations, each contributing to a repository that connected astronomy, mathematics, botany, philosophy, and perhaps even disciplines he could not yet comprehend. As he continued along the corridor, the walls gradually opened into a larger chamber. This room was different from any he had seen so far. The ceiling was higher, supported by fewer but more massive pillars, each carved with intricate designs depicting human figures observing celestial events, recording discoveries, and offering what appeared to be rituals of respect to the knowledge itself. In the center of the chamber lay a stone basin, its surface engraved with concentric circles that radiated outward like ripples on water. Within the basin, faint traces of dried pigment suggested it had been used to chart cycles or patterns, possibly related to the movement of stars, tides, or seasons. Aaron knelt beside it, careful not to disturb the delicate carvings, and ran his fingers along the etched lines. The precision of the markings was astonishing, and he realized that this basin might have served as a teaching tool, a way for scholars to visualize complex patterns and understand the interconnections between natural phenomena. Beyond the basin, shelves lined the chamber walls, each holding containers similar to those he had already seen, though here they appeared even more carefully organized. Symbols on the lids indicated subjects, and the consistent arrangement suggested a method of indexing knowledge that allowed scholars to navigate the vast underground library efficiently. Aaron's mind swirled with possibilities. Each new room revealed layers of thought and planning, the combined work of generations dedicated to preserving human understanding. It was clear that the underground archive had been created not only as a repository, but as a living system of knowledge, one designed to be discovered gradually, with care and respect for the past. He felt a surge of responsibility as he realized that he was now part of this chain, entrusted with the preservation of discoveries that had survived centuries. A faint echo from a distant corridor reminded him that the network of passages extended far beyond what he could see. Somewhere in the darkness, other chambers awaited, each potentially containing secrets even older and more profound than those he had already encountered. Aaron lifted his lamp higher, letting its light touch the farthest edges of the chamber. The spiral motif repeated subtly in the mosaic floor beneath his feet, a symbol of continuity, growth, and the ever-expanding nature of knowledge. As he moved toward the next passage, ready to continue his exploration, he understood that the silent nights of the ancient library had more to teach him than he could have imagined. Each step forward was not just a physical journey into the depths of stone corridors, but a journey into the minds and intentions of scholars long gone, whose devotion to the survival of knowledge had created a hidden world waiting patiently to reveal itself. And as Aaron disappeared into the next darkened passage, the lamp flame dancing across the walls, he felt the weight and honor of becoming the latest guardian in a chain of discoveries stretching across centuries, a witness to the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library. Aaron's steps echoed softly as he continued down the narrow corridor branching from the chamber with the central basin, each footfall sending tiny vibrations through the ancient stone beneath him. The air grew colder and drier as he moved deeper, carrying the faint scent of old parchment and stone dust that seemed to have remained untouched for centuries. The walls of the passage were lined with faint, almost imperceptible carvings, small constellations, geometric shapes, and sequences of symbols he had seen throughout the underground archive. He paused occasionally to trace the markings with his fingers, marveling at the precision and care that had gone into each line. It was as if the scholars who had constructed this hidden network had encoded a silent language into the very stones, leaving a record for those patient and perceptive enough to follow. After several minutes, the corridor opened into a wider chamber, smaller than the basin room, but no less remarkable. The walls were lined with niches, each containing a single object carefully wrapped and sealed. Some objects appeared to be scrolls, others small tablets or bound volumes, while a few were oddly shaped instruments whose purpose Aaron could not immediately discern. Each niche carried a carved symbol above it, and though some symbols were familiar, others were unique, strange, and intriguing. He moved from niche to niche, carefully lifting the lids and peering inside. One contained a delicate set of star charts, meticulously drawn with ink that had retained its deep black hue despite centuries of isolation. Another held a small wooden box containing tiny instruments that appeared to be tools for measuring angles and distances, possibly used for observing celestial or terrestrial phenomena. Aaron's heart raced as he realized that each object was not only preserved, but deliberately arranged to convey knowledge in a systematic way. He could see the method in the placement of symbols, the sequence of containers, and the alignment of niches along the walls. The chamber itself was a teaching tool, a carefully designed environment intended to guide scholars through the understanding of complex relationships between nature, mathematics, and the cosmos. At the far end of the room, Aaron noticed a subtle indentation in the floor, forming a shallow circle with a spiral symbol carved within it. The design was remarkably similar to the spiral symbols he had seen throughout the library, but this one was larger and more prominent, as if it marked something of particular importance. He approached the symbol and carefully set the lamp beside it, crouching to examine the carvings more closely. Along the outer edge of the spiral were small glyphs that seemed to form a set of instructions or a key to opening something hidden within the chamber. Aaron traced each symbol with his fingers, attempting to decipher the logic behind them. After several minutes, he realized that the sequence corresponded with several objects he had just inspected. The spiral on the floor was a mechanism designed to interact with these specific objects in a particular order, activating a hidden mechanism when properly aligned. Excitement surged through him. The scholars who built this place had not simply preserved knowledge, They had embedded it in a physical system, one that required understanding, attention, and care to unlock. Carefully, he positioned one of the star charts atop a pedestal adjacent to the spiral, aligning it according to the instructions indicated by the glyphs. The floor beneath him trembled faintly, and a section of the stone wall began to shift, revealing a narrow passageway beyond. Aaron's pulse quickened as he realized he had triggered another secret within the underground network. The passage ahead descended deeper, winding downward in a gentle spiral. Each step seemed to carry him farther into the heart of the ancient library's hidden design, away from the world above and into the very mind of the scholars who had built it. As he moved forward, the passage opened into yet another chamber, larger and darker than any he had entered before. The air felt heavier here, charged with an almost imperceptible energy, as if the room itself was aware of the centuries of secrets it had guarded. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal supporting a large, intricately carved sphere, its surface etched with constellations, geometric patterns, and flowing lines connecting stars, planets, and symbols that Aaron recognized from the manuscripts he had studied. The sphere was clearly not merely decorative. It seemed to function as a model, a three-dimensional representation of the cosmos as understood by the ancient scholars. Aaron moved closer, lifting a lamp to illuminate the carvings. The level of detail was astonishing. Minute patterns within the designs mirrored those he had seen in the spiral manuscripts, connecting the growth of plants, the cycles of celestial bodies, and mathematical relationships into a single unified system. It was a physical manifestation of the philosophy encoded throughout the underground library, that all knowledge, no matter the discipline, was interrelated and part of a grand, coherent order. Around the pedestal, the chamber walls were lined with alcoves containing manuscripts, instruments, and smaller spheres similar to the central one. Each seemed to correspond to a particular field of study, yet the connections between them were clear: astronomy linked to mathematics, mathematics to nature, nature to philosophy. The underground library was not a simple archive. It was a living network, designed to guide the mind of the scholar who explored it, teaching understanding through both observation and interaction. Aaron stepped closer to the central sphere, his fingers lightly brushing the carved lines. He felt a shiver of awe and responsibility. This was the culmination of centuries of work, a final synthesis of knowledge preserved with painstaking care. The silent nights of the ancient library had led him here, through corridors, hidden chambers, and coded passages, to the heart of a secret world where human understanding had been nurtured, protected, and elevated. And as he stood there, holding the lamp steady and tracing the patterns of the universe with his eyes, Aaron realized that the journey had only just begun. Each hidden passage, each carefully preserved manuscript, and each mysterious object was part of a legacy entrusted to him. The underground library was alive with the wisdom of generations, and he had become its latest guardian, charged with uncovering its secrets, learning from them, and carrying their insights forward into a world that had long forgotten their existence. The weight of that responsibility pressed on him, but it was matched by the exhilaration of discovery, and Aaron knew that the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the ancient library would continue to guide him deeper into its mysteries. Aaron stepped back from the central sphere, letting the lamp's warm glow sweep across the chamber and illuminate the intricate carvings on the walls and floor. The air felt thick with the weight of centuries, as though the underground library itself was aware of his presence, holding its breath while he absorbed the depths of what lay before him. Every alcove, every pedestal, every carefully arranged object was a testament to the painstaking care of the scholars who had dedicated their lives to preserving knowledge that could have been lost to war, neglect, or the decay of time. He walked slowly along the perimeter of the chamber, examining each alcove with growing reverence. Some contained scrolls inscribed with detailed astronomical calculations, others held instruments for measuring angles and distances, delicate tools whose purpose he could only begin to imagine. There were also early botanical texts, their pages filled with diagrams of leaves, roots, and flowers, annotated with mathematical ratios and patterns connecting them to celestial cycles. The realization struck him with an almost physical force. The ancient scholars had seen knowledge not as isolated disciplines, but as an interconnected system, a single web stretching across the universe and threading through all aspects of life. He knelt before one alcove containing a small bound manuscript whose cover was decorated with the spiral symbol he had seen throughout the library. Carefully opening it, Aaron was amazed to find a series of diagrams linking the phases of the moon to tidal movements, plant growth, and even the cycles of human thought and emotion. Notes in the margins suggested experiments and observations that spanned decades, if not generations, indicating a continuity of scholarship preserved meticulously over centuries. He could almost feel the minds of the scholars who had contributed to this hidden archive, their curiosity, their dedication, their quiet hope that one day someone would discover their work and carry it forward. The deeper he explored, the more he realized that the library was designed as a living system. Its passages, its secret mechanisms, and even the placement of objects within the chambers seemed intended not just for preservation but for teaching. The scholars had created a space that required observation, interaction, and reflection to truly understand, a labyrinth of wisdom that guided the mind of anyone patient and perceptive enough to navigate it. A faint draft of air drew his attention to the far side of the chamber. There, partially hidden by shadows, was a narrow archway carved directly into the stone wall, its edges worn smooth from centuries of use. Aaron approached it carefully, holding the lamp high. Beyond the archway, he glimpsed another corridor descending into deeper darkness. The faint glow from the chamber behind him highlighted carvings along the walls, symbols and spiral motifs suggesting that this passage, like so many others, led to further secrets waiting to be discovered. He hesitated briefly, feeling the weight of the responsibility that came with each step deeper into the underground network. The scholars had entrusted these hidden chambers to those who could appreciate and respect the knowledge contained within them. Every discovery carried not only the thrill of uncovering lost wisdom, but also the responsibility to understand and preserve it. With steady resolve, Aaron stepped through the archway and began descending the corridor. The walls here were even more intricately carved, the faint inscriptions telling stories of scholars observing the skies, recording discoveries, and safeguarding them from destruction. Some carvings depicted cities rising and falling, flames consuming libraries, and the careful relocation of manuscripts to hidden chambers. Others illustrated patterns in nature, the flow of water, the branching of trees, the arrangement of stars, all interconnected by spirals and geometric shapes. The spiral motif repeated constantly, reinforcing the idea that knowledge expanded outward, growing and evolving with each generation that engaged with it. As he moved deeper, the corridor opened into a smaller chamber whose walls were lined with wooden shelves containing instruments he had never seen before. Delicate devices for measuring angles, small globes representing planetary orbits, and compasses with intricately engraved needles all seemed designed to provide practical understanding of the theories documented in the manuscripts. Aaron carefully lifted one instrument from its shelf, marveling at its precision. The craftsmanship suggested a level of knowledge far beyond what was generally attributed to ancient scholars. He realized that the underground library was not only a repository of information but also a center for applied science, a place where theory and observation were combined in ways that could profoundly enhance human understanding. Moving toward the center of the chamber, Aaron noticed a low stone pedestal upon which rested a thin metal plate engraved with delicate symbols. As he studied it, he recognized a pattern similar to those on the manuscripts he had already seen. It seemed to function as a kind of interface, a key to understanding the alignment of the instruments and the objects within the chamber. Carefully placing the lamp beside the pedestal, he traced the symbols with his fingers, feeling a thrill of anticipation. As he aligned the first instrument, according to the engraving, a faint grinding sound echoed from within the walls. Small panels shifted, revealing additional hidden compartments containing more manuscripts, tools, and diagrams. The realization struck him. The underground library was designed to reward those who approached it with patience, observation, and respect. Each discovery led to the next, creating a chain of understanding that unfolded gradually, guiding the mind toward a greater comprehension of the universe. Aaron paused in the center of the chamber, taking in the magnitude of the network he had uncovered. He understood that the hidden library was not merely a collection of texts and artifacts, but a living, interactive system designed to preserve, teach, and inspire. Every corridor, chamber, and symbol was a deliberate part of this design, created by scholars whose vision extended far beyond their own lifetimes. And as he continued to explore the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library, Aaron realized that he had become part of that chain of discovery, entrusted with the same responsibility and honor that had guided generations of scholars before him, standing at the threshold of wisdom hidden for centuries, ready to carry it forward into the world above. Aaron continued deeper into the newly revealed corridor, the lamp in his hand casting a narrow cone of light that flickered against the ancient stone walls, illuminating patterns and symbols that seemed to pulse subtly with meaning. The air grew colder and heavier, carrying with it the faint scent of centuries-old parchment and the faint metallic tang of ancient mechanisms hidden within the walls. As he descended, he noticed that the carvings along the passage were far more intricate than any he had seen before, blending geometric precision with artistic flourishes that depicted the stars, plants, and even human figures engaged in observation and study. Each line and curve seemed deliberate, forming a visual language designed to guide the mind of the scholar who navigated these hidden halls. The spiral motif repeated constantly, sometimes subtly embedded in the patterns, other times boldly marking key points along the passage. Aaron understood that these motifs were more than decoration. They were philosophy, a reminder that knowledge expanded outward, growing endlessly as it connected with new discoveries. He paused to examine a small alcove where a stone pedestal held a delicate set of instruments, some shaped like miniature celestial spheres, others with finely calibrated needles and etched scales. A nearby scroll described their use, measuring the positions of stars, calculating distances between planets, and tracking the passage of time in relation to celestial events. The precision of the instruments was extraordinary, suggesting that the ancient scholars who created them had observed the heavens with unparalleled diligence. Aaron carefully lifted one of the spheres, feeling the weight and balance of its design, imagining the generations of scholars who had once used it in the quiet hours of the night to uncover the secrets of the cosmos. Further down the corridor, he came upon a chamber larger than any he had seen since the central sphere room. The ceiling arched high above, carved with constellations and interwoven patterns that seemed to shimmer faintly in the lamplight. Along the walls were niches containing manuscripts, instruments, and small objects, each meticulously labeled with symbols and designs corresponding to their subject matter. Astronomy, mathematics, natural sciences, philosophy, and even elements of early engineering were represented here, all arranged in a manner that suggested careful thought and intentional design. In the center of the chamber lay a low stone table, its surface engraved with concentric circles, lines, and spirals that mirrored the diagrams in the manuscripts he had studied. Aaron knelt beside the table, tracing the engraved patterns with his fingers. He realized that the table was not merely decorative, it was a functional teaching tool, allowing a scholar to visualize complex relationships between celestial movements, natural cycles, and mathematical principles. The deeper he examined the engravings, the more he appreciated the interconnectedness the ancient scholars had sought to convey. Each pattern on the table corresponded to diagrams in the scrolls, illustrating cycles of the moon, the changing seasons, and the rhythms of plant growth, all tied to the movement of the stars. The philosophy was clear. The universe was an intricate, unified system, and understanding required careful observation, patience, and reverence for the natural order. As Aaron rose to explore the perimeter of the chamber, he noticed a faint outline of a door concealed within the stone wall. The seam was nearly invisible, but the spiral motifs etched along its edges suggested it was another secret passage. His heart quickened with anticipation. The underground library seemed to reward those who approached it with curiosity and care, revealing deeper layers of knowledge to those willing to follow its subtle guidance. Placing the lamp carefully on the stone floor, Aaron examined the door. A small circular indentation marked its center, reminiscent of the keyholes he had encountered in previous chambers. From the folds of his backpack, He retrieved a small metal clasp bearing the familiar spiral symbol, the same one used to unlock the stone table mechanism in the earlier chamber. With deliberate care, he pressed the clasp into the indentation. A low grinding sound echoed through the chamber as hidden stone mechanisms shifted into place, and the door slowly opened inward, revealing a descending passage shrouded in darkness. The air from the passage carried a distinct chill, as if it had remained undisturbed for centuries. Aaron stepped inside, his lamp illuminating the first few steps of a spiral staircase winding downward. Each footfall seemed to carry him further into the heart of the ancient archive, away from the world above and deeper into the minds of the scholars who had built this secret library. As he descended, he noticed carvings on the walls depicting scholars observing celestial events, recording measurements, and carefully safeguarding scrolls and instruments. Some carvings illustrated the rise and fall of cities, the destruction of libraries, and the careful relocation of knowledge to hidden chambers, emphasizing the importance of preservation across generations. At the base of the staircase, Aaron entered another chamber, smaller but densely packed with objects of profound significance. Stone pedestals bore delicate instruments, intricately carved spheres, and manuscripts bound in leather with silver spirals on their covers. Each object appeared to correspond to a specific principle or area of study, and their arrangement suggested a deliberate method of teaching and exploration. In the center of the room, a low circular platform held a thin metal plate engraved with complex symbols and patterns. As Aaron studied it, he realized it was another interface, a guide to interacting with the instruments and manuscripts in the chamber. Aligning a small celestial sphere atop the plate according to the symbols caused a hidden compartment to open along the far wall, revealing additional manuscripts, diagrams, and tools. The underground library was designed as a living, interactive system, rewarding careful observation and thoughtful engagement. Aaron felt a deep sense of awe and responsibility. He understood that the library was not merely a repository of knowledge, but a carefully constructed network meant to guide, teach, and inspire those who are willing to approach it with reverence. Each hidden passage, each coded symbol, each carefully preserved manuscript was part of a continuum of understanding stretching across centuries. And as Aaron began to study the newly revealed manuscripts, the lamp's light flickering across the walls, he realized that he had become a part of that chain, entrusted with the guardianship of knowledge preserved through silent, wisdom-filled nights for generations, a living participant in a centuries-old dialogue between minds separated by time, but united by the pursuit of understanding. Aaron carefully arranged the newly revealed manuscripts and instruments along the edges of the low circular platform, the lamp's light casting dancing shadows that made the intricate carvings on the walls seem alive. Every surface in the chamber, every etched spiral and geometric symbol, spoke of centuries of careful thought, of scholars devoted not to fame or fortune, but to the preservation and expansion of knowledge. He moved slowly among the pedestals, examining each instrument, each bound manuscript, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on him with every step. The chamber seemed designed to guide the mind of the explorer, to reward patience and observation, and Aaron felt increasingly aware that his journey was no longer merely one of discovery, but of understanding. He lifted a delicate celestial globe, tracing the engraved lines with his fingers, noting the correspondence between the constellations and diagrams he had seen in the spiral manuscripts. Each curve and circle was a thread linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy, a visual proof of the ancient scholars' belief in a universe of interconnected patterns. Placing the globe back carefully, he turned toward the far wall, where another concealed passage revealed itself behind a subtle seam in the stone. The spiral motifs etched along its edge signaled its significance, and Aaron felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. Stepping through, he descended a narrow, winding corridor whose walls were decorated with even finer carvings than before, depicting scholars making careful observations, recording their findings, and sealing their knowledge in hidden chambers. Some carvings illustrated the devastation of cities and libraries, while others showed the relocation of precious manuscripts and instruments to secret underground spaces. It became increasingly clear that the library's hidden network had been meticulously planned to preserve knowledge through time, ensuring that the efforts of one generation could survive the destruction or neglect of another. At the base of the spiral staircase, Aaron entered a chamber bathed in the dim glow of his lamp. The walls were lined with stone shelves filled with sealed boxes, each marked with unique symbols. Many contained bound manuscripts similar to the central spiral texts, while others housed small instruments or tablets. He carefully lifted one of the boxes, engraved with concentric stars and flowing lines, and opened it to reveal delicate scrolls covered in mathematical formulas and diagrams linking natural cycles to celestial movements. The level of precision in the observations astonished him. These scholars had measured, calculated, and recorded phenomena with a rigor that rivaled the most advanced methods known today. Aaron placed the scrolls back and moved to another pedestal, where a small brass instrument rested beside a star chart. The instrument's needles were perfectly balanced, the engraved scales precise to fractions, and the accompanying chart showed complex patterns of lunar phases, tidal movements, and seasonal changes. He realized that this chamber, like the others, had been designed to allow hands-on interaction, to teach the principles encoded within the manuscripts through direct engagement with instruments and models. Every detail reinforced the philosophy that knowledge was not static, but active, a living system that expanded through observation, experimentation, and reflection. As he explored, Aaron noticed a subtle vibration in the floor beneath the central pedestal. A closer inspection revealed a small circular indentation, another key mechanism similar to the ones he had used in previous chambers. Retrieving the metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol from his bag, he carefully inserted it into the indentation. A low grinding sound echoed through the chamber as a section of the wall slowly shifted, revealing a hidden compartment beyond. Inside were additional manuscripts, some bound in dark leather with silver spirals, others wrapped in protective cloth and sealed with intricate symbols. Their pages contained diagrams connecting astronomy, mathematics, natural philosophy, and even early mechanical engineering, suggesting that the scholars had sought a unified understanding of the universe. Aaron carefully lifted one manuscript and opened it. The text described principles of harmony between the heavens and the natural world, illustrating how patterns in the stars mirrored those in plants, animals, and human thought. Marginal notes indicated practical experiments and observations, revealing a meticulous, iterative approach to understanding the cosmos. He realized that these ancient scholars had not merely recorded what they saw, they had sought to understand the underlying order of existence itself. Placing the manuscript back, Aaron turned toward another part of the chamber and discovered a low alcove that contained small metallic spheres engraved with constellations and geometric lines. Arranging them on a stone platform, he noted that they fit into grooves and markings that aligned with diagrams in the manuscripts, suggesting a hands-on model for visualizing celestial mechanics. As he traced the lines connecting the spheres to the engraved diagrams, a deep sense of awe filled him. The underground library was more than a repository. It was a teaching system, a living mechanism that guided the mind toward comprehension of patterns, cycles, and connections spanning centuries of accumulated knowledge. Hours seemed to pass as he carefully explored each corner, handling manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams with reverent attention. Every discovery reinforced the realization that the library was a network designed not only to preserve but also to instruct, cultivating understanding through interaction and reflection. The silent nights of the underground library had patiently awaited a mind capable of appreciating its wisdom, and Aaron understood that he had become a participant in a continuum of learning stretching back through generations of devoted scholars. Each spiral, each symbol, each mechanism was a testament to their foresight and dedication, and as he prepared to explore the next hidden passage, Aaron felt the profound weight and honor of being entrusted with the guardianship of knowledge preserved through centuries, a living link in a chain of discovery that would continue to expand outward, connecting past, present, and future. Aaron carefully stepped through the narrow passage revealed by the hidden mechanism, the lamp casting flickering light across the ancient stone walls. The corridors spiraled downward, tighter and darker than any he had traversed before, and the air grew cooler, carrying the faint, musty scent of centuries-old manuscripts and stone dust. As he descended, he noticed the carvings along the walls had become even more intricate, tiny figures of scholars observing stars, measuring plants, sketching diagrams, and performing experiments, all interwoven with complex geometric patterns and spirals that seemed to pulse faintly in the lamp's glow. Every detail felt deliberate, as if the walls themselves were communicating the dedication, discipline, and philosophy of the scholars who had created this hidden network. The spiral motif, recurring throughout the library, seemed more pronounced here, marking the passage as significant, guiding Aaron toward the next secret chamber. With each careful step, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, the sense that he was not merely discovering forgotten knowledge, but walking in the footsteps of generations entrusted with the preservation of wisdom. At the base of the spiral, the corridor opened into a chamber unlike any he had encountered. Its ceiling was high and arched, carved with constellations that seemed to shimmer subtly, and the floor was covered with a mosaic of concentric spirals, geometric patterns, and symbols interlinking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. The walls were lined with shelves and alcoves, each containing manuscripts, instruments, and objects whose purpose became clearer the more he observed them. Some were small, precise measuring tools. Others were larger globes representing celestial movements, and scattered among them were delicate scrolls and bound books, many embossed with the familiar spiral symbol indicating their significance. Aaron moved slowly, absorbing every detail, feeling the magnitude of the centuries of scholarship preserved in this hidden chamber. At the center of the room stood a low stone pedestal with a large, flat disc resting atop it. The disc was engraved with intricate patterns, spirals, intersecting lines, and clusters of symbols, forming a visual representation of the relationships among celestial phenomena, natural cycles, and mathematical principles. He realized that the disc, like the other instruments and manuscripts, was part of a larger teaching system, a means of guiding a careful observer to understand the harmony underlying the universe. As he leaned closer, he noticed tiny indentations along the edge of the disc, matching the shape of small instruments from the surrounding alcoves. Aligning a miniature celestial sphere into one of the slots caused a faint grinding sound, and a narrow panel slid open in the wall, revealing additional manuscripts and diagrams previously hidden from view. Aaron's heart raced as he realized the library's design rewarded attention, patience, and understanding. The underground network was not simply a repository, but an interactive system, teaching and guiding those willing to engage with it thoughtfully. Each hidden chamber, each coded symbol, each carefully preserved object formed part of an intricate web that linked disciplines, philosophies, and generations of scholars into a living continuum of knowledge. He carefully lifted one of the newly revealed manuscripts, its leather cover marked with a silver spiral. The pages contained dense diagrams and explanatory text, linking the orbits of planets to tidal movements, the phases of the moon to agricultural cycles, and even human behavior to natural rhythms. Marginal notes in varying scripts suggested contributions from multiple scholars across centuries, indicating an ongoing dialogue preserved in secrecy. The depth of insight stunned Aaron. The scholars had not only observed the world, but had sought to understand the underlying principles connecting all phenomena, and they had left instructions for others to follow and expand upon their work. Placing the manuscript back, he turned his attention to a series of small pedestals lining the chamber. Each supported a delicate instrument, some with needles calibrated to fractions of a degree, others shaped like miniature auroras or compasses, all intended to provide practical understanding of the theoretical principles in the manuscripts. Aligning one instrument with the engraved patterns on the floor caused another hidden compartment to reveal additional scrolls and diagrams. Aaron realized that every chamber he entered, every mechanism he activated, was designed to teach through observation and interaction, to reward those who approached with care, patience, and respect. The interconnectedness of the instruments, manuscripts, and carvings reflected the philosophy he had seen throughout the library, that knowledge was not static but dynamic, expanding outward like the spirals etched into the walls and floors, linking disciplines, ideas, and generations. As he explored, He became increasingly aware that he was part of a living continuum, a guardian of centuries of wisdom. Each discovery brought him closer to understanding the grand vision of the scholars who had built this hidden network, and he felt a profound sense of honor and responsibility. Beyond the chamber, a narrow staircase descended further into darkness. The spiral motifs carved along its edges indicated that this passage, like those before it, led to yet another layer of the library's hidden structure. Aaron adjusted the lamp and began his descent, mindful of each step. The air grew colder, the stone smoother, the carvings more intricate, and the sense of anticipation intensified. With every turn of the spiral staircase, he realized that the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library were guiding him deeper into the heart of human understanding. Here, in these hidden chambers, generations of scholars had converged across time, leaving a meticulously preserved path of discovery. Aaron felt the weight of that legacy, and with the lamp held high, he descended further, ready to uncover the next layer of secrets in the vast, interconnected network of wisdom that had waited patiently for centuries, a silent testament to the enduring pursuit of knowledge. Aaron's footsteps echoed softly as he descended the narrow spiral staircase, the lamp casting a warm, trembling glow that barely reached the edges of the stone corridor. The air grew colder and carried a musty, almost metallic scent that hinted at centuries of preservation and neglect intermingled. The walls were adorned with ever more intricate carvings, tiny figures of scholars hunched over instruments, sketching diagrams, observing celestial bodies, and cataloging the natural world, all interconnected with spirals and geometric patterns that pulsed faintly in the flickering light. Each detail seemed to convey intent, philosophy, and purpose, as if the stones themselves were meant to teach patience, observation, and reverence for knowledge. Aaron paused occasionally to trace the carvings with his fingers, recognizing subtle symbols he had seen in previous chambers, spirals marking key points, stars indicating celestial connections, and lines linking disparate diagrams, suggesting the interconnectedness of all things the ancient scholars had studied. The spiral motif, repeated endlessly, felt like a visual mantra, reminding him that understanding expanded outward and could never be fully contained. As he reached the bottom of the staircase, the corridor opened into a chamber that radiated quiet authority and focus. Its arched ceiling was high, carved with interlocking constellations, floral patterns, and flowing geometric designs, each seemingly aligned with an invisible lattice of knowledge stretching throughout the underground library. Along the walls, stone shelves and recessed alcoves held instruments, bound manuscripts, and small objects whose purpose revealed itself gradually as he examined them. Some were delicate tools for measuring angles and distances. Others were small auroras and globes tracing planetary movements. Manuscripts were bound in dark leather, embossed with silver spirals, their pages filled with diagrams, marginal notes, and coded annotations. Aaron moved slowly from one alcove to the next, opening a small bound manuscript that illustrated the interdependence of the moon's phases, tides, agricultural cycles, and even human activity. He marveled at the precision of the observations, the clarity of thought, and the philosophy underpinning it all. Knowledge was not isolated, but a network, a living system meant to be discovered, interpreted, and built upon. At the center of the chamber stood a low pedestal supporting a circular platform engraved with spirals, lines, and intersecting patterns. Aaron realized that the platform functioned as a teaching tool, a map of interconnections between celestial, natural, and human phenomena. Placing a miniature celestial sphere into one of the indentations caused a subtle grinding sound, and the floor beneath the platform shifted slightly, revealing a hidden compartment containing additional scrolls and instruments. The library's design was not merely to preserve, but to reward engagement, careful thought, and exploration. Each interaction unlocked more knowledge, each discovery built upon the last, and the entire underground network was a deliberate system of instruction and preservation. Aaron lifted a newly revealed scroll and examined its pages. Detailed diagrams linked the movements of planets to mathematical ratios, the growth of plants to lunar cycles, and human understanding to natural rhythms. The marginalia, written in varying scripts and ink tones, suggested contributions from generations of scholars, each expanding upon the work of their predecessors. The meticulous organization and foresight required to maintain such a continuum of knowledge over centuries left Aaron both awed and humbled. Moving to the far end of the chamber, he discovered another subtle seam in the stone wall, indicated by a series of small spiral symbols carved into the edges. Kneeling, he examined the indentation at the center and realized it was a key mechanism, similar to those he had encountered in previous chambers. Retrieving the small metal clasp bearing the spiral motif from his bag, he inserted it into the slot. A low grinding echoed through the chamber as a section of the wall slid open, revealing a descending staircase shrouded in shadow. The air grew colder still, and the faint scent of old parchment grew stronger as he stepped forward. The spiral motifs along the walls suggested that this passage led even deeper, to chambers containing the oldest and most carefully preserved knowledge of the underground library. Each carved figure along the corridor depicted scholars observing, calculating, and recording, with subtle hints of peril, cities burning, libraries collapsing, knowledge being concealed to survive destruction, reminding him of the fragility of wisdom and the foresight required to preserve it. At the bottom of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than the previous, but packed with profound objects, intricate instruments, globes depicting celestial mechanics, bound manuscripts with silver spirals, and delicate tablets etched with symbols linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. The arrangement was deliberate. Each item corresponded to a principle or experiment, teaching the relationships between observation and understanding. Aaron carefully aligned a small brass instrument with the engraved lines on the floor. A faint hum resonated through the chamber, and a hidden panel opened to reveal additional manuscripts and instruments, confirming that the library functioned as a living system of knowledge, designed to be discovered gradually, interactively, and thoughtfully. Hours passed unnoticed as he examined each object, traced the carvings, and studied the manuscripts, absorbing the centuries of accumulated insight. The underground library was not merely a repository, it was a network of understanding, a continuum linking generations of scholars who had carefully curated, tested, and preserved human knowledge. Aaron felt a profound sense of responsibility and honor as he realized that he had become part of that continuum. Each spiral, each symbol, each mechanism was a reminder that knowledge was both fragile and enduring, expanding outward through those willing to engage with it deeply. Preparing to explore the next hidden passage revealed by the chamber's mechanisms, Aaron lifted his lamp and took a deep breath. The silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched before him, endless corridors and chambers waiting to share their secrets with someone patient enough to uncover them. He stepped forward, ready to continue the journey deeper into the heart of wisdom preserved for centuries, a living participant in the unbroken chain of discovery that spanned generations. Aaron descended the narrow spiral staircase, each step echoing softly through the underground corridor, the flickering light of his lamp casting dancing shadows on the intricate carvings lining the walls. The air grew colder and denser with each turn, carrying a faint scent of ancient parchment, stone, and a hint of metallic tang from mechanisms long dormant. As he moved deeper, the carvings became ever more intricate, depicting scholars hunched over instruments, carefully observing stars, measuring plant growth, and recording precise calculations, all intertwined with spirals, geometric patterns, and flowing lines that seemed almost alive in the lamp's trembling glow. The recurring spiral motif guided him subtly, a silent thread leading him toward chambers of increasing significance, reinforcing the philosophy that knowledge expands outward, connecting everything in a continuous network. At the bottom of the staircase, he entered a chamber that radiated a solemn, almost reverent atmosphere. The arched ceiling was carved with constellations and interwoven geometric designs, illuminated by the lamp to reveal a complexity that seemed beyond mortal craftsmanship. Along the walls, alcoves held instruments, bound manuscripts, and objects of delicate craftsmanship. Some were small measuring tools with engraved scales, others were miniature celestial spheres or compasses, each designed to provide practical insight into the patterns recorded in the manuscripts. The manuscripts themselves were bound in dark leather, embossed with silver spirals, and filled with diagrams, marginal notes, and coded annotations contributed by generations of scholars who had expanded, refined, and preserved the knowledge over centuries. Aaron carefully examined a scroll illustrating how the cycles of the moon affected tides, plant growth, and human perception, noticing marginal notes in multiple scripts suggesting centuries of observation, experimentation, and refinement. He realized that the scholars had not simply recorded the world. They had sought to understand its underlying order and to create a teaching system that could be discovered gradually, rewarding careful observation and engagement. At the center of the chamber stood a low pedestal with a circular platform engraved with concentric spirals, intersecting lines, and patterns connecting celestial movements to natural phenomena. Aaron placed a small celestial sphere into one of the indentations along the edge, and a faint grinding echoed as a hidden compartment slid open in the wall, revealing additional scrolls, instruments, and diagrams. Each interaction seemed designed to reward the patient, attentive scholar, reinforcing the library's purpose as a living, interactive system rather than a static archive. Moving to another alcove, he found small metallic spheres etched with constellations and geometric lines, arranged on a stone platform in alignment with the manuscripts. Tracing their connections, he realized they formed a physical model of the relationships between the heavens and the natural world, illustrating cycles, ratios, and patterns that linked mathematics, astronomy, botany, and human understanding. Hours passed unnoticed as he explored each corner of the chamber, testing instruments, examining manuscripts, and tracing carvings, absorbing the centuries of accumulated knowledge. Every element, the engraved walls, the meticulously preserved scrolls, the instruments calibrated with precision, demonstrated the care and foresight of generations of scholars, each contributing to a network designed to teach, guide, and preserve. Beyond the chamber, a subtle seam in the stone wall revealed another passage marked with spiral motifs. Kneeling to examine it, Aaron found a circular indentation in the center, a mechanism similar to others he had used. Retrieving the small metal clasp with a spiral symbol from his bag, he inserted it into the slot. A grinding sound resonated as the wall slowly shifted, revealing a descending corridor shrouded in darkness. The spiral patterns along the passage suggested that it led further into the heart of the library, to chambers containing knowledge preserved with the utmost care, the oldest and most profound discoveries hidden for centuries. As he stepped forward, the temperature dropped, and the faint scent of aged parchment grew stronger, reinforcing the sense that he was entering a sacred space. Along the walls, carvings depicted scholars observing celestial events, recording data, and carefully safeguarding their discoveries. Scenes of cities burning and libraries collapsing contrasted with depictions of scrolls and instruments being moved to hidden chambers, emphasizing the fragility of knowledge and the foresight required to preserve it. At the base of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than those before, yet densely packed with remarkable objects, miniature auroras, precise instruments, bound manuscripts, and delicate tablets etched with symbols linking mathematical, astronomical, and natural principles. Each object corresponded to a principle or experiment, designed to teach the interconnections between observation, theory, and application. Carefully aligning a brass instrument with engraved floor markings activated another hidden compartment, revealing additional manuscripts, diagrams, and tools, confirming that the library functioned as a living system of knowledge, interactive and deliberate in its design. Aaron felt a deep sense of awe and responsibility, understanding that the underground library was not merely a repository, but a meticulously organized network linking generations of scholars through time. Each spiral, each symbol, each hidden mechanism reinforced the notion that knowledge was both fragile and enduring, expanding outward through patient and thoughtful engagement. As he prepared to explore the next passage revealed by the mechanisms of the chamber, Aaron held the lamp high, inhaling the cool, musty air, and stepped forward into the darkness. The silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched before him, Endless corridors and hidden chambers waiting to share their secrets with someone willing to approach them with curiosity, care, and reverence. He descended further, feeling the weight and honor of joining the continuum of discovery, becoming a living participant in the centuries-long pursuit of understanding preserved in the labyrinthine heart of the ancient library. Aaron stepped cautiously into the next chamber, his lamp casting a trembling circle of light across the walls, revealing carvings more intricate than anything he had seen so far. The air was heavy with the scent of centuries-old parchment and stone dust, tinged faintly with metallic notes from mechanisms long dormant. The chamber itself was circular, its ceiling vaulted and covered with carvings of constellations intertwined with geometric patterns and spirals, forming a tapestry that seemed almost alive in the flickering lamplight. Along the walls, niches and alcoves were filled with instruments, small celestial spheres, compasses, and meticulously bound manuscripts, each marked with spirals or other symbols indicating their significance. Aaron moved slowly, examining each object, lifting delicate instruments and tracing their calibrated scales with reverent fingers, noting how each seemed designed not only for measurement, but for teaching understanding through interaction. One manuscript, bound in dark leather with silver spirals, contained detailed diagrams linking the cycles of the moon and tides to agricultural patterns and even human behavior. Marginal notes in varying scripts suggested centuries of continued observation, refinement, and contribution from multiple scholars, forming a living dialogue that had endured hidden from the outside world. At the center of the chamber stood a stone pedestal with a large circular disc engraved with spirals, lines, and intersecting patterns. It was immediately clear to Aaron that the disc functioned as both a map and a teaching instrument, a means to visualize the connections between celestial phenomena, natural cycles, and mathematical principles. He placed a miniature celestial globe into one of the disc's indentations, and the floor beneath the pedestal shifted slightly with a grinding sound, revealing a hidden compartment containing additional manuscripts and instruments. The underground library revealed itself to Aaron as a living, interactive system, carefully designed to reward observation, patience, and careful thought. He moved along the chamber walls, aligning instruments with engraved diagrams, watching hidden panels slide open to reveal more scrolls and tools. Each discovery built upon the last, forming a chain of understanding that spanned generations. The network of chambers, passages, and secret mechanisms seemed designed to lead the mind gradually into comprehension, teaching that knowledge was not static but dynamic, interconnected, and cumulative. Aaron felt the weight of centuries pressing upon him, but it was tempered by exhilaration, the thrill of discovery and the honor of being entrusted with the wisdom of countless scholars long gone. Beyond the chamber, he noticed a narrow archway partially hidden behind a stone shelf, its edges engraved with the familiar spiral motif. Kneeling, he discovered a circular indentation at the center, similar to mechanisms he had encountered in previous chambers. Retrieving the small metal clasp from his bag, he carefully inserted it into the slot. The wall trembled and shifted, revealing a descending corridor winding further into darkness. Aaron adjusted the lamp and descended cautiously, aware that each step deeper brought him into the heart of knowledge preserved with the utmost care. The spiral carvings along the walls guided him, repeating with subtle variations that suggested meaning and purpose, while small scenes depicted scholars observing, recording, and carefully preserving manuscripts and instruments. Some illustrations showed the devastation of libraries and cities, others the relocation of precious knowledge to hidden chambers, emphasizing the foresight and dedication required to protect wisdom across generations. At the base of the corridor, he entered another chamber, smaller yet densely packed with remarkable artifacts, precise instruments for measuring angles and distances, small auras depicting planetary motions, and bound manuscripts filled with diagrams linking natural and celestial patterns. Each object corresponded to principles explained in nearby scrolls, forming an interconnected system of teaching. Aligning a brass instrument with etched floor markings triggered another hidden compartment, revealing more manuscripts, diagrams, and objects, confirming the library's design as an interactive, living network. Hours passed as Aaron carefully explored every corner, tracing carvings, handling delicate tools, and studying manuscripts. The underground library was more than a repository, it was a continuum, a carefully structured system linking knowledge, observation, and practice, connecting scholars across centuries. He realized that the spiral motif repeated everywhere was a philosophy, a visual representation of the growth and expansion of understanding, an encouragement for the mind to explore, connect, and expand outward. Each mechanism, each hidden compartment, and each carefully preserved object was evidence of centuries of planning, collaboration, and devotion to the preservation of human understanding. Aaron felt a profound sense of responsibility. He was no longer merely an observer. He had become a participant in the lineage of scholars who had dedicated their lives to the careful stewardship of knowledge. As he approached another hidden passage indicated by subtle spiral carvings along the wall, he adjusted his lamp, inhaled the cool, dense air, and stepped forward. The corridor spiraled downward, tighter and darker than before, yet he felt a growing exhilaration. Each twist, each shadow, and each hidden mechanism was a reminder that the underground library was alive, patient, and meticulous, designed to unfold its secrets only to those willing to approach with respect and curiosity. Aaron descended into the next layer of the labyrinth, aware that he was journeying further into the very mind of the ancient scholars who had built this network. The silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him, each corridor, chamber, and spiral a testament to centuries of human curiosity, care, and the relentless pursuit of understanding, and he knew that he had become a living link in that unbroken chain of discovery. Aaron descended deeper into the hidden passage, the spiral staircase narrowing as he went, the walls pressing in with the weight of centuries. The flickering lamp cast shifting shadows that danced across the carved symbols, constellations, and spirals that seemed to breathe with a silent rhythm, guiding him forward. The air grew colder and heavier, carrying the musty scent of aged parchment, stone, and faint traces of metallic mechanisms lying dormant for generations. As he progressed, the carvings became increasingly intricate, depicting not only scholars studying the heavens and recording natural patterns, but also abstract sequences of interlocking shapes, mathematical ratios, and lines connecting the stars, plants, and human forms, as though the walls themselves were a living map of knowledge, both seen and hidden. Each spiral motif, repeated subtly or boldly, seemed to pulse with meaning, a quiet language encoded in stone, directing the observer toward chambers of particular significance and teaching that understanding unfolded gradually, layer by layer. At the bottom of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber that emanated an almost sacred stillness. Its vaulted ceiling was carved with interwoven constellations, geometrical designs, and spirals that mirrored patterns he had seen in manuscripts, instruments, and previous chambers. Along the walls, stone alcoves held delicate instruments calibrated with extraordinary precision, miniature auroras tracing planetary orbits, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals. Each object was positioned with deliberate care, arranged to correspond with diagrams, carvings, or mechanisms in the room, forming a subtle web of knowledge that rewarded attentive study. Aaron moved slowly, lifting a small celestial sphere and tracing the engraved lines, noting how its curves matched diagrams in nearby manuscripts. He realized that the chamber itself was a teaching instrument, designed to instruct through interaction, observation, and reflection. A manuscript bound in dark leather lay open on a pedestal. Its pages contained diagrams linking lunar cycles to tides, seasonal plant growth, and even subtle human behavioral patterns, with marginal notes in various scripts suggesting generations of scholars had expanded and refined these insights over centuries. Aaron's breath caught at the meticulousness, the foresight, and the continuity preserved in secrecy, realizing that the underground library was more than a repository. It was a living, interactive system designed to nurture understanding and encourage the discovery of patterns connecting all aspects of life and the cosmos. In the center of the chamber, a low circular pedestal held a disc etched with spirals, intersecting lines, and symbols connecting celestial and terrestrial phenomena. Aaron placed a brass instrument into an indentation, and a subtle grinding echoed through the chamber as a hidden panel slid open, revealing additional scrolls and instruments. The design rewarded engagement, curiosity, and patience, encouraging scholars to observe, align, and interact to unlock deeper layers of knowledge. Moving along the walls, he discovered small metallic spheres etched with constellations, arranged on platforms in alignment with manuscripts, forming a three-dimensional model of celestial mechanics intertwined with natural cycles. Tracing their interconnections, he understood that each chamber and instrument was part of a deliberate system designed to teach through exploration and hands-on study. Time passed almost imperceptibly as he examined every manuscript, instrument, and carving. The library was alive with a silent intelligence, guiding those who approached with care and reverence. Beyond the chamber, a narrow archway partially hidden in shadows revealed another passage, marked with subtle spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron examined the circular indentation at its center, recognizing it as a mechanism similar to those he had encountered before. He retrieved the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol from his bag and inserted it carefully into the slot. The wall shifted with a low, grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor. The air grew colder, and the faint scent of centuries-old parchment intensified, signaling that he was moving toward the oldest and most carefully preserved secrets of the underground library. The walls were covered in carvings depicting scholars observing, recording, and safeguarding knowledge. Some illustrations showed libraries and cities burning, others the careful concealment and relocation of manuscripts, emphasizing both the fragility and endurance of wisdom. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than those above, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and tablets etched with symbols linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Each object corresponded to a principle explained in the scrolls and diagrams, forming a cohesive system of teaching and understanding. Aligning a brass instrument with the floor markings activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional manuscripts and instruments. Aaron realized that the underground library functioned as a living network of knowledge, designed to be discovered gradually, interactively, and thoughtfully. Every spiral, symbol, and hidden mechanism reinforced the philosophy that understanding was not static but dynamic, expanding outward and linking generations of scholars in a continuum of discovery. As he prepared to move forward, he felt both awe and responsibility. He was no longer simply an explorer, but a participant in the centuries-long chain of guardianship and study. Each corridor, each chamber, each hidden passage was a testament to human curiosity, care, and perseverance, and as Aaron stepped into the next darkness, he knew that the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him, waiting to share their secrets with those patient enough to follow them, and that he had become a living link in that unbroken chain of discovery and understanding. Aaron's descent continued through the narrow spiral passage, the flickering light of his lamp casting trembling shadows across the stone walls that were alive with intricate carvings. The spirals and geometric patterns intertwined with depictions of scholars observing the heavens, sketching diagrams, and meticulously recording measurements, creating a visual narrative of centuries of diligent study. Each symbol seemed deliberate, each line a thread connecting ideas across time, a silent guide urging patience, observation, and reflection. The air grew colder, denser, carrying the mingled scent of aged parchment, stone, and the faint metallic tang of mechanisms long dormant. The spiral motifs repeated in subtle variations along the walls, marking the way toward chambers of increasing significance, and Aaron felt a deepening awareness that he was approaching the hidden heart of the library, a place where the oldest and most carefully preserved knowledge awaited. At the bottom of the staircase, he entered a chamber whose atmosphere radiated solemnity and quiet authority. The vaulted ceiling was carved with interlocking constellations, abstract geometric patterns, and flowing spirals that mirrored diagrams he had seen in manuscripts and instruments. Alcoves along the walls contained delicate tools for measurement, miniature celestial spheres, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals. Each object was deliberately positioned, forming a network of knowledge that could be discovered gradually through careful observation and interaction. Aaron moved among the instruments, lifting them gently, tracing engraved lines with his fingers, noting how their alignment corresponded with diagrams in nearby scrolls. He understood that the chamber was a teaching instrument as much as a repository, designed to cultivate understanding through engagement and reflection. On a central pedestal rested a circular disc, engraved with spirals, intersecting lines, and symbols connecting celestial patterns, natural cycles, and human behavior. Aaron placed a small brass instrument into one of the indentations, and a subtle grinding echoed as a hidden compartment opened, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The library's design rewarded patience, careful thought, and reverent interaction, teaching that knowledge was not static but dynamic, interconnected, and cumulative. Along the chamber walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations were arranged on platforms aligned with diagrams, forming a tangible model of celestial mechanics intertwined with natural cycles. Tracing the relationships between spheres and manuscripts, Aaron marveled at the foresight and meticulous planning that had gone into creating this living system of understanding. Hours passed unnoticed as he explored each corner, handling manuscripts, examining instruments, and tracing carvings. The underground library was more than a collection of texts. It was a continuum, a network linking observation, theory, and practical application across centuries. Beyond this chamber, a subtle archway revealed another passage partially hidden behind stone shelves, marked with familiar spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron found a circular indentation at its center and inserted the metal clasp with a spiral symbol. A grinding sound resonated, and the wall shifted, revealing a descending corridor. The air grew colder and heavier, carrying the scent of parchment preserved for centuries, signaling that he was entering the core of the library's secret knowledge. The walls were carved with sequences of scholars observing, calculating, and carefully safeguarding manuscripts, juxtaposed with illustrations of cities burning and libraries destroyed, emphasizing the fragile persistence of wisdom across time. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than those above, but densely packed with instruments, auroras, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets, each corresponding to principles documented in the scrolls. Aligning a brass instrument with floor markings caused another hidden compartment to open, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and objects. The interactive design of the library became increasingly evident. Each discovery unlocked the next, forming a chain of understanding that rewarded engagement and deep contemplation. Aaron realized that the spiral motifs repeated everywhere were not merely decorative. They were a visual philosophy, symbolizing the growth of knowledge outward through observation and careful study, linking generations of scholars in an unbroken chain. As he prepared to explore the next revealed passage, he felt the weight of responsibility and honor. He was no longer a mere explorer, but a participant in the centuries-long continuum of discovery, entrusted with the guardianship of knowledge preserved through countless quiet, careful nights. The labyrinth of chambers, corridors, and hidden mechanisms stretched endlessly before him, each spiral, symbol, and carefully concealed manuscript a testament to human curiosity, diligence, and the pursuit of understanding. Holding the lamp high, Aaron stepped forward into the darkness of the next passage, aware that the silent, wisdom-filled nights of the underground library awaited, ready to impart their secrets to those patient and reverent enough to follow them, and that he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had preserved, taught, and expanded human knowledge across centuries. Aaron carefully descended the next spiral staircase, the stone steps worn smooth by centuries of footsteps long forgotten, his lamp casting flickering light on the walls, alive with intricate carvings that seemed to pulse with the memory of generations of scholars. The air grew colder and denser, carrying the faint scent of aged parchment, stone, and metallic mechanisms that had slumbered undisturbed for centuries. The walls were a tapestry of knowledge, adorned with interlocking spirals, geometric patterns, and depictions of scholars observing celestial movements, measuring plant growth, and meticulously recording mathematical and natural phenomena. Each detail seemed deliberate, each line a thread connecting the past to the present, a silent guide urging patience, careful observation, and reflection. The recurring spiral motifs along the corridor acted as subtle markers, indicating points of significance and reminding Aaron that understanding was cumulative, expanding outward like the spirals themselves, and that each discovery built upon the work of those who had come before. At the bottom of the staircase, he entered a chamber suffused with quiet authority, its vaulted ceiling carved with interwoven constellations and geometric designs that mirrored patterns he had seen in manuscripts and instruments from the upper chambers. Stone alcoves along the walls contained delicate instruments for measurement, miniature celestial spheres, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, each positioned with meticulous care to correspond with diagrams, carvings, or mechanisms nearby. Aaron moved slowly, lifting instruments with reverent fingers, tracing engraved lines, and aligning them with manuscripts to reveal hidden patterns. It became clear that this chamber, like the others, functioned as both a repository and a teaching tool, designed to cultivate understanding through interaction and observation rather than passive reading. On a central pedestal rested a circular disc, engraved with spirals, intersecting lines, and symbols connecting celestial movements, natural cycles, and human behavior. Placing a small brass instrument into one of the indentations, Aaron heard a low grinding echo as a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. Each interaction revealed more knowledge, reinforcing that the library's design rewarded careful thought, patience, and engagement. Along the walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations were arranged on stone platforms, aligned with diagrams in the manuscripts to form a tangible, three-dimensional model of celestial mechanics intertwined with natural cycles. Tracing their connections, Aaron realized the chamber itself was a meticulously constructed system of teaching, demonstrating how observation, mathematics, and philosophy could converge to reveal the underlying order of the universe. Hours passed unnoticed as he studied manuscripts, instruments, and carvings, absorbing the centuries of accumulated wisdom and the deliberate care with which it had been preserved. Beyond the chamber, a narrow archway partially concealed behind stone shelves led to another passage, marked with spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron examined a circular indentation in its center, recognizing it as another mechanism. He inserted the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol, and the wall shifted with a grinding sound, revealing a descending corridor. The air grew colder, the scent of ancient parchment stronger, signaling that he was entering the core of the library's hidden treasures. The walls depicted scholars observing, recording, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with images of cities burning, libraries destroyed, and manuscripts being carefully relocated to hidden chambers, emphasizing both the fragility and endurance of wisdom. At the base of the corridor, he entered a chamber smaller but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with markings on the floor activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls and diagrams. The interactive system of the library was now unmistakable. Each discovery unlocked the next, forming a continuum of knowledge designed to teach, inspire, and preserve. Aaron understood that the spiral motifs were not mere decoration. They symbolized the outward expansion of understanding, connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to explore the next revealed passage, he felt the profound weight of responsibility and the honor of participating in the centuries-long lineage of guardianship and study. Each corridor, each chamber, each hidden mechanism was a testament to human curiosity, patience, and devotion to understanding. Holding the lamp high, Aaron stepped into the darkness of the next passage, aware that the silent, wisdom-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him, each chamber and spiral a carefully preserved layer of knowledge, waiting to share its secrets with those patient and reverent enough to follow, and he knew he had become a living link in that unbroken continuum of discovery. Aaron carefully descended the next spiral staircase, the stone steps worn smooth over centuries, each footfall echoing softly through the narrow corridor. The flickering lamp cast long shadows that danced across walls etched with intricate carvings, spirals, and geometric patterns interwoven with depictions of scholars observing the heavens, measuring plants, and recording precise calculations. Each image seemed alive, a silent testament to centuries of observation and learning, each line a thread connecting knowledge across time. The air grew colder and denser, carrying the faint scent of aged parchment and stone, mixed with a subtle metallic tang from long-dormant mechanisms hidden within the walls. As Aaron descended, he noticed that the spiral motifs became increasingly intricate, almost hypnotic, guiding him forward and reinforcing the idea that understanding unfolded gradually, layer upon layer, like the interlocking coils of the designs surrounding him. At the bottom of the staircase, he entered a chamber that radiated quiet authority, the vaulted ceiling carved with constellations, spirals, and interlocking geometric shapes that mirrored diagrams he had seen in manuscripts and instruments from the upper chambers. Along the walls, alcoves and niches held delicate instruments, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals. Each object was deliberately positioned to correspond with diagrams, carvings, or hidden mechanisms, forming a living system of knowledge designed to teach through interaction rather than passive observation. Aaron moved carefully among the instruments, lifting them, aligning them with engraved diagrams, and tracing fine lines with his fingers. He realized that the chamber itself functioned as a teaching tool, providing insight into celestial mechanics, natural cycles, and mathematical relationships. A central pedestal supported a large circular disc engraved with intersecting lines, spirals, and symbols linking celestial movements, seasonal changes, and human behavior. When he placed a small brass instrument into one of the indentations, a low grinding echoed through the chamber, and a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The design rewarded careful observation, patience, and engagement, each interaction revealing new layers of understanding and connecting principles across disciplines. Along the walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations were arranged on stone platforms in precise alignment with diagrams from the manuscripts, forming a three-dimensional model of celestial and natural interactions. As Aaron traced their connections, he realized that the chamber was a carefully constructed system of teaching, designed to reveal the underlying harmony of the cosmos through hands-on observation and practical exploration. Hours passed unnoticed as he explored every corner, studied the manuscripts, and tested the instruments. The underground library was more than a collection of objects. It was a continuum linking knowledge, observation, and practice across centuries. Beyond this chamber, a narrow archway partially hidden behind stone shelves led to another passage, marked with subtle spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron discovered a circular indentation at its center and inserted the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor. The air grew colder, heavier, and carried a stronger scent of centuries-old parchment, signaling that he was approaching the deepest and most carefully preserved secrets of the library. The walls were carved with sequences of scholars observing, calculating, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with scenes of cities burning and libraries collapsing, emphasizing the fragility and persistence of wisdom. At the base of the corridor, he entered a chamber smaller than those above, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with floor markings activated a hidden compartment, revealing more scrolls and objects. The interactive design of the library became clear. Each discovery unlocked the next, forming a chain of understanding that rewarded engagement and reflection. Aaron recognized that the repeated spiral motifs were philosophical, symbolizing the expansion of knowledge outward, connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. As he prepared to explore the next revealed passage, a profound sense of responsibility settled over him. He was no longer merely an explorer. He had become a participant in the centuries-long continuum of guardianship, study, and discovery. Every corridor, chamber, and mechanism bore witness to human curiosity, diligence, and reverence for understanding, and Aaron realized that he was now part of that living legacy. Holding the lamp high, he stepped into the darkness of the next passage, aware that the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him, each chamber and spiral carefully preserved to share its secrets with those patient and reverent enough to follow, and that he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars spanning centuries. Aaron descended the next spiral staircase with deliberate care, each worn stone step echoing softly through the narrow corridor, the flickering light of his lamp casting shadows that seemed to dance along the walls, bringing the intricate carvings to life. The walls were a tapestry of spirals, geometric patterns, and scenes of scholars observing the heavens, mapping constellations, recording measurements, and examining the natural world, all interwoven with symbols that suggested centuries of accumulated knowledge. The air grew colder, carrying the faint scent of ancient parchment, stone, and the metallic tang of long-dormant mechanisms hidden within the walls. Each spiral motif along the corridor seemed to pulse subtly, guiding him deeper into the library and reminding him that understanding unfolded gradually, layer by layer, like the interlocking coils etched into the stone. At the bottom of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber that radiated quiet authority, its vaulted ceiling covered with carvings of constellations, interlocking spirals, and abstract geometric forms, mirroring diagrams he had seen in manuscripts and instruments from the upper levels. Along the walls, alcoves and niches contained delicate measuring instruments, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, all arranged with meticulous precision to correspond with floor markings, wall diagrams, or hidden mechanisms. Each object formed part of a living, interactive system of knowledge designed to teach through observation and engagement rather than mere reading. Aaron carefully explored the instruments, aligning them with engraved diagrams and tracing intricate lines with his fingers, realizing that the chamber itself was a teaching device, illustrating the interconnectedness of celestial movements, seasonal cycles, and human behavior. On a central pedestal rested a large circular disc engraved with spirals, intersecting lines, and symbols linking mathematical, astronomical, and natural principles. Placing a small brass instrument into one of the indentations caused a low grinding, and a hidden compartment slid open to reveal additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The design of the library was deliberate and interactive, rewarding patience, curiosity, and thoughtful observation. Small metallic spheres etched with constellations were positioned on platforms along the walls, aligned precisely with diagrams in the manuscripts to form a three-dimensional model of celestial and natural systems. Tracing the connections between these spheres and the scrolls, Aaron understood that the chamber was a meticulously constructed teaching environment, meant to reveal the underlying harmony of the universe through exploration and reflection. Hours passed without notice as he studied manuscripts, instruments, and carvings, absorbing the accumulated wisdom preserved over centuries. Beyond the chamber, a narrow archway partially concealed behind stone shelves led to another passage, marked with spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron found a circular indentation at its center and inserted the metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor that grew colder and heavier with each step, carrying the deep, musty scent of centuries-old parchment. Here, he knew he was entering the core of the library's most carefully preserved secrets. The walls depicted sequences of scholars observing, calculating, and safeguarding knowledge, interspersed with images of cities in flames and libraries destroyed, emphasizing both the fragility and resilience of wisdom across time. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than those above, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with markings on the floor activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and objects. The interactive design of the library was now unmistakable. Each discovery led to another, forming a continuum of knowledge that demanded engagement, thought, and reflection. Aaron realized that the recurring spiral motifs were more than decoration. They symbolized the outward expansion of understanding, connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to continue into the next revealed passage, he felt a profound sense of responsibility and reverence. He was no longer simply an observer, but a participant in the centuries-long continuum of scholarship, entrusted with preserving and expanding knowledge. Each corridor, chamber, and hidden mechanism was a testament to human curiosity, diligence, and devotion to understanding, and as Aaron held the lamp high and stepped forward, he knew the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him. Every spiral, every chamber, every manuscript was a carefully preserved layer of wisdom, waiting for those patient and reverent enough to uncover it, and he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of discovery that spanned generations, a guardian of secrets that had survived the test of time. Aaron descended the spiral staircase with cautious steps, the worn stone echoing softly in the silent corridor, the flickering light of his lamp casting elongated shadows across the walls that seemed to move and shift as though alive. The carvings were more intricate than ever, a tapestry of spirals, geometric shapes, and scenes of scholars hunched over instruments, charting stars, measuring plants, and recording precise observations. Each spiral seemed to pulse with meaning, each line a thread connecting centuries of knowledge, guiding him deeper into the library's hidden heart. The air grew colder and heavier, carrying the faint mustiness of ancient parchment mixed with the metallic tang of mechanisms long dormant, their purpose slowly revealing itself to the attentive eye. Aaron noted that the spiral motifs along the walls repeated in increasingly complex patterns, some etched deeply, others faintly worn, marking significant points in the passage and suggesting that understanding here unfolded gradually, layer upon layer, in a deliberate sequence. At the bottom of the staircase, he entered a chamber that radiated quiet authority. The vaulted ceiling was carved with interwoven constellations, spirals, and abstract geometrical forms, mirroring diagrams he had seen in previous chambers. Along the walls, alcoves held delicate instruments for measurement, miniature auras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, each positioned with meticulous precision to correspond with diagrams, floor markings, or hidden mechanisms. Aaron carefully lifted instruments, aligning them with engraved lines and tracing their curves with reverent fingers, realizing that the chamber itself functioned as a teaching tool, designed to convey complex relationships between celestial movements, seasonal cycles, and human behavior. On a central pedestal rested a circular disc engraved with intersecting spirals and lines, linking astronomical, mathematical, and natural principles. When he placed a small brass instrument into one of its indentations, a low grinding echoed as a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The chamber rewarded patience, observation, and careful thought, confirming that the library was an interactive system designed to teach through engagement rather than passive reading. Along the walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations rested on platforms aligned with manuscript diagrams, forming a tangible model of celestial mechanics intertwined with natural rhythms. Tracing their relationships, Aaron saw how observation, mathematics, and philosophy converged to reveal the universe's underlying order. Hours passed as he studied manuscripts, tested instruments, and examined carvings, absorbing the centuries of accumulated wisdom and the deliberate care with which it had been preserved. Beyond a chamber, a narrow archway, partially concealed by stone shelves, led to another passage marked with spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron discovered a circular indentation at its center and inserted the metal clasp with a spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor. The air grew colder, the scent of ancient parchment stronger, signaling that he was approaching the core of the library's most carefully preserved knowledge. The walls depicted scholars observing, calculating, and safeguarding manuscripts, juxtaposed with images of cities burning and libraries collapsing, emphasizing both the fragility and persistence of wisdom across centuries. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than the others, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets connecting mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with floor markings activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and objects. The interactive design of the library was unmistakable. Each discovery unlocked the next, forming a chain of knowledge that demanded attention, engagement, and reflection. Aaron realized that the recurring spiral motifs were philosophical as much as decorative, symbolizing the outward expansion of understanding, linking generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to continue into the next hidden passage, he felt the weight of responsibility and honor. He was no longer merely an observer. He had become part of the centuries-long continuum of guardianship, study, and discovery. Each corridor, chamber, and mechanism was a testament to human curiosity, patience, and devotion to understanding. Holding the lamp high, Aaron stepped into the darkness, aware that the silent, wisdom-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him. Every spiral, chamber, and manuscript was a carefully preserved layer of knowledge, waiting for those patient and reverent enough to uncover it, and he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had preserved, taught, and expanded human understanding across centuries. Aaron's descent continued deeper into the labyrinthine library, each step on the worn spiral staircase echoing softly against the cold stone walls, the lamp's flickering light illuminating a tapestry of carvings that seemed almost alive in the dim glow. The walls were adorned with spirals, geometric patterns, and intricate depictions of scholars hunched over instruments, carefully recording celestial movements, mapping the growth of plants, and calculating precise mathematical relationships. Every detail carried centuries of accumulated knowledge, and the repeating spiral motifs seemed to guide him, subtly marking points of significance and reminding him that understanding unfolded gradually, layer by layer, like the interlocking coils engraved into the stone. The air grew colder and heavier, infused with the scent of aged parchment and stone, mingled faintly with the metallic tang of mechanisms long dormant, waiting to reveal their purpose to an attentive observer. As Aaron descended, he noticed the carvings becoming increasingly complex, some almost three-dimensional, depicting entire sequences of observation, calculation, and experimentation, illustrating the progression of knowledge across generations of scholars who had labored to preserve it. At the bottom of the staircase, he entered a chamber that radiated quiet authority and reverence, the vaulted ceiling covered with interwoven constellations, spirals, and abstract geometric forms that mirrored diagrams he had encountered in manuscripts and instruments from upper chambers. Stone alcoves along the walls held delicate measuring tools, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, all deliberately arranged to correspond with diagrams, floor markings, or hidden mechanisms. Each object formed a part of a living, interactive network of knowledge, designed to teach through observation, interaction, and reflection rather than passive reading. Aaron moved slowly among the instruments, aligning them with engraved diagrams and tracing their lines with his fingers, understanding that the chamber itself was a teaching instrument, illustrating the interconnectedness of celestial phenomena, seasonal cycles, and human behavior. At the center of the chamber, a circular disc rested on a pedestal, engraved with spirals, intersecting lines, and symbols linking astronomical, mathematical, and natural principles. Placing a small brass instrument into one of the indentations caused a low grinding to resonate through the chamber, and a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The design of the library was deliberate, interactive, and patient, rewarding careful observation and thoughtful engagement. Along the walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations were positioned on platforms in alignment with the diagrams in the manuscripts, forming a three-dimensional model of celestial mechanics intertwined with natural cycles. Tracing the spheres' connections, Aaron realized the chamber was a meticulously constructed system meant to reveal the universe's underlying order through hands-on exploration and observation. Hours passed unnoticed as he examined instruments, studied manuscripts, and traced carvings, absorbing centuries of accumulated wisdom and the care with which it had been preserved. Beyond this chamber, a narrow archway partially concealed by stone shelves revealed another passage, marked with subtle spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron discovered a circular indentation at its center and inserted the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor that grew colder and heavier, carrying the deep, musty scent of ancient parchment preserved over centuries. Here, he knew he was approaching the library's most secret and carefully preserved chambers. The walls were filled with carvings depicting scholars observing, recording, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with images of cities burning and libraries destroyed, emphasizing the fragility and resilience of wisdom. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than the previous ones, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with markings on the floor activated a hidden compartment, revealing more scrolls, diagrams, and tools. The interactive design of the library was unmistakable. Each discovery led to another, forming a chain of knowledge that demanded attention, engagement, and reflection. Aaron realized that the recurring spiral motifs were not mere decoration. They were a philosophical symbol representing the outward expansion of understanding, connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to explore the next revealed passage, he felt the profound weight of responsibility and honor. He was no longer a mere explorer. He had become a participant in a centuries-long continuum of guardianship and study. Every corridor, chamber, and mechanism testified to human curiosity, diligence, and devotion to understanding, and as he lifted the lamp and stepped into the next darkness, he understood that the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him, each chamber, spiral, and manuscript a carefully preserved layer of wisdom, waiting to be discovered by those patient and reverent enough to follow, and that he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had safeguarded, expanded, and transmitted human understanding across time. Aaron carefully descended the spiral staircase, the worn stones echoing softly beneath his feet as his lamp flickered, casting shifting light across the walls alive with intricate carvings and spirals. Each pattern seemed deliberate, a visual language of knowledge accumulated over centuries, depicting scholars observing the stars, measuring plants, recording experiments, and calculating mathematical relationships, their movements frozen in stone, yet conveying a living continuity of learning. The air grew colder and denser, carrying the faint scent of ancient parchment, stone, and a metallic tang hinting at mechanisms long dormant, but awaiting discovery. The spiral motifs along the walls guided him subtly, marking points of significance and reinforcing the understanding that knowledge here was meant to be uncovered gradually, layer by layer, each discovery building on the last. At the bottom of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber suffused with solemnity, its vaulted ceiling carved with interlocking spirals, constellations, and geometric patterns that mirrored diagrams he had seen in manuscripts and instruments in higher chambers. Alcoves along the walls held delicate instruments, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, all positioned meticulously to correspond with diagrams, floor markings, or hidden mechanisms. Each object was part of a living, interactive system of knowledge, designed to teach through engagement, observation, and reflection rather than passive reading. Aaron moved slowly among the instruments, lifting them with reverence, tracing engraved lines, and aligning them with diagrams, understanding that the chamber itself was a teaching tool demonstrating the interconnections of celestial phenomena, seasonal cycles, and human perception. At the center of the room rested a circular disc engraved with spirals, intersecting lines, and symbols linking mathematical, astronomical, and natural principles. When he placed a small brass instrument into one of its indentations, a low grinding echoed through the chamber, and a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The chamber rewarded patience, careful thought, and meticulous observation, confirming that the library's design was deliberate and interactive. Along the walls, metallic spheres etched with constellations rested on platforms aligned with manuscript diagrams, forming a tangible, three-dimensional model of celestial and natural interactions. Tracing these connections, Aaron realized that observation, calculation, and philosophical reasoning converged here to reveal the underlying order of the cosmos. Hours passed as he explored every corner, examined manuscripts, and tested instruments, absorbing the centuries of accumulated wisdom and the foresight with which it had been preserved. Beyond this chamber, a narrow archway, partially concealed by stone shelves, led to another passage marked with spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron discovered a circular indentation at its center and inserted the metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor. The air grew colder and heavier, carrying the scent of centuries-old parchment, signaling that he was approaching the library's most secret and carefully guarded chambers. The walls depicted scholars observing, calculating, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with images of cities in flames and libraries destroyed, emphasizing both the fragility and resilience of wisdom over time. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than the previous ones, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets connecting mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with floor markings activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and tools. The interactive design of the library was unmistakable. Each discovery led to another, forming a chain of knowledge that required patience, engagement, and reflection. Aaron realized that the repeated spiral motifs were philosophical as well as decorative, representing the outward expansion of understanding and linking generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to continue into the next passage, he felt the profound weight of responsibility and honor. He was no longer a mere observer. He had become part of the centuries-long continuum of guardianship, study, and discovery. Each corridor, chamber, and hidden mechanism bore witness to human curiosity, diligence, and devotion to understanding. Holding his lamp high, Aaron stepped into the next darkness, aware that the silent, wisdom-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him. Every spiral, chamber, and manuscript was a carefully preserved layer of knowledge, waiting to be uncovered by those patient and reverent enough to follow, and he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had preserved, expanded, and transmitted understanding across centuries. Aaron carefully descended the next spiral staircase, the worn stone steps echoing softly in the confined corridor, the lamp he carried casting a flickering light that played across walls covered in spirals, geometric designs, and scenes of scholars hunched over instruments, recording observations of the stars, mapping the cycles of nature, and calculating precise measurements. The carvings were intricate beyond measure, each line a thread connecting centuries of accumulated knowledge, each spiral a guide subtly directing him deeper into the hidden heart of the underground library. The air grew colder, dense with the scent of aged parchment, stone, and a faint metallic tang hinting at mechanisms lying dormant for centuries, waiting for an attentive mind to activate them. The spiral motifs repeated along the walls in increasingly complex arrangements, some deeply etched, others almost imperceptibly worn, signaling points of significance and reinforcing the lesson that understanding here unfolded gradually, each layer of knowledge building upon the last. At the bottom of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber suffused with a solemn, almost sacred authority, its vaulted ceiling covered in interwoven constellations, abstract geometric forms, and spirals mirroring diagrams he had seen in manuscripts and instruments from the higher levels. Stone alcoves along the walls held delicate measuring instruments, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, each carefully positioned to correspond with diagrams, floor markings, or hidden compartments. The chamber was not merely a repository, but a carefully constructed teaching environment, designed to convey complex relationships between celestial mechanics, natural cycles, and human understanding through interaction and observation. Aaron moved deliberately among the instruments, lifting them, tracing engraved lines with his fingers, and aligning them with manuscripts to reveal hidden connections. At the center of the room rested a circular disc, engraved with intersecting spirals and symbols linking mathematical, astronomical, and natural principles. Placing a small brass instrument into one of its indentations caused a low grinding sound, and a hidden compartment slid open to reveal additional scrolls, diagrams, and instruments. The design of the chamber rewarded patience, curiosity, and careful thought, reinforcing the idea that knowledge was dynamic, interconnected, and cumulative. Along the walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations were arranged on platforms in precise alignment with the manuscripts, forming a three-dimensional representation of celestial and terrestrial interactions. Tracing their relationships, Aaron understood that the chamber's layout was a deliberate teaching tool, demonstrating how observation, measurement, and reflection converged to reveal the order of the universe. Hours passed unnoticed as he examined manuscripts, tested instruments, and studied carvings, absorbing centuries of wisdom preserved with extraordinary care. Beyond the chamber, a narrow archway, partially concealed by stone shelves, led to another passage, marked with subtle spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron found a circular indentation at its center and inserted the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor that grew colder, heavier, and more still with each step. The scent of centuries-old parchment intensified, signaling that he was approaching the library's deepest and most carefully preserved secrets. The walls depicted scholars observing, recording, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with images of cities burning and libraries destroyed, emphasizing both the fragility and resilience of wisdom across generations. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than the previous ones, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with floor markings activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and tools. The interactive design of the library was now unmistakable. Each discovery led to another, forming a continuous chain of knowledge that demanded engagement, careful thought, and reverence. Aaron recognized that the recurring spiral motifs were not merely decorative, they were philosophical, symbolizing the outward expansion of understanding and connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to continue into the next hidden passage, he felt the weight of responsibility and the honor of being part of a centuries-long continuum of guardianship and study. Each corridor, chamber, and hidden mechanism testified to human curiosity, patience, and devotion to understanding. Holding his lamp high, Aaron stepped forward into the darkness of the next passage, aware that the silent, knowledge-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him, each chamber, spiral, and manuscript a carefully preserved layer of wisdom, waiting to be discovered by those patient and reverent enough to follow, and that he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had preserved, expanded, and transmitted understanding across the centuries. Aaron descended further into the spiral staircase, each worn stone step echoing softly in the narrow corridor, the flickering light of his lamp casting dancing shadows across the walls that were alive with spirals, geometric patterns, and intricate carvings of scholars observing the heavens, measuring plants, and recording precise calculations. The engravings seemed to pulse with centuries of accumulated knowledge, each spiral a subtle guide, each line a thread connecting past and present, urging him to move deeper into the hidden heart of the underground library. The air grew colder and heavier, carrying the faint scent of aged parchment, stone, and the metallic tang of mechanisms lying dormant for generations, waiting to reveal their purpose to an attentive mind. The spiral motifs along the walls grew increasingly complex, some deeply etched, others faintly worn, marking points of significance and reinforcing the idea that understanding here unfolded gradually, each layer of knowledge building upon the last, demanding patience and careful observation. At the bottom of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber suffused with solemn authority. Its vaulted ceiling was adorned with interwoven constellations, spirals, and abstract geometric forms, mirroring diagrams he had seen in manuscripts and instruments in previous chambers. Alcoves along the walls contained delicate measuring tools, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, each positioned with meticulous care to correspond with diagrams, floor markings, or hidden mechanisms. The chamber was not merely a repository, but a living teaching environment, designed to convey the interconnections of celestial phenomena, natural cycles, and human understanding through hands-on exploration. Aaron moved carefully among the instruments, aligning them with engraved diagrams and tracing their curves with his fingers, realizing that the room itself was a deliberate pedagogical system, illustrating how observation, measurement, and reflection converged to reveal the universe's underlying order. In the center of the chamber rested a circular disc, engraved with intersecting spirals, lines, and symbols linking mathematical, astronomical, and natural principles. Placing a small brass instrument into one of the indentations caused a low grinding sound, and a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional manuscripts, instruments, and diagrams. The chamber's design rewarded patience, careful study, and engagement, demonstrating that knowledge was dynamic, cumulative, and interconnected. Along the walls, metallic spheres etched with constellations rested on platforms in alignment with diagrams from the manuscripts, forming a three-dimensional representation of celestial and terrestrial systems. Tracing their relationships, Aaron saw how centuries of observation, calculation, and philosophical reasoning had converged to reveal patterns and harmonies that extended across time and space. Hours passed unnoticed as he examined manuscripts, instruments, and carvings, absorbing the meticulous care with which knowledge had been preserved. Beyond this chamber, a narrow archway partially concealed behind stone shelves revealed another passage, marked with subtle spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron found a circular indentation at its center and inserted the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor that grew colder and heavier with each step, carrying the scent of centuries-old parchment, signaling that he was approaching the library's most secret and carefully guarded chambers. The walls depicted scholars observing, calculating, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with images of cities burning and libraries collapsing, emphasizing both the fragility and resilience of wisdom. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than the previous ones, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with markings on the floor activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and tools. The interactive design of the library was unmistakable. Each discovery led to another, forming a continuum of knowledge that demanded attention, engagement, and reflection. Aaron understood that the recurring spiral motifs were philosophical as well as decorative, symbolizing the outward expansion of understanding and connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain of discovery. Preparing to continue into the next hidden passage, he felt a profound sense of responsibility and reverence. He was no longer merely an explorer. He had become a participant in the centuries-long continuum of guardianship, study, and discovery. Each corridor, chamber, and hidden mechanism testified to human curiosity, diligence, and devotion to understanding, and as he held the lamp high and stepped forward into the darkness, Aaron knew that the silent, wisdom-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him. Every spiral, chamber, and manuscript was a carefully preserved layer of knowledge, waiting for those patient and reverent enough to uncover it, and he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had preserved, expanded, and transmitted understanding across the centuries. Aaron descended the spiral staircase with measured steps, each worn stone echoing softly in the narrow corridor, the flickering light of his lamp illuminating walls alive with spirals, geometric patterns, and intricate carvings of scholars engaged in observation, calculation, and study. The carvings seemed to pulse with centuries of accumulated knowledge, each line a thread connecting generations, each spiral a subtle guide urging him deeper into the library's hidden heart. The air grew colder and denser, carrying the scent of ancient parchment, stone, and a faint metallic tang that hinted at mechanisms long dormant, waiting for careful hands and attentive eyes to awaken them. As he progressed, the spiral motifs along the walls became increasingly complex, some deeply etched, others nearly imperceptible, marking points of significance and signaling that understanding here unfolded gradually, layer upon layer, each insight building upon the last. At the base of the staircase, Aaron entered a chamber suffused with quiet authority, its vaulted ceiling covered with interwoven constellations, spirals, and geometric forms that mirrored diagrams he had studied in manuscripts and instruments in earlier chambers. Alcoves along the walls contained delicate instruments, miniature auroras, compasses, and bound manuscripts embossed with silver spirals, all arranged meticulously to correspond with diagrams, floor markings, or hidden compartments. The chamber was not merely a repository, but a living teaching space, designed to reveal the interconnections of celestial movements, natural cycles, and human reasoning through direct engagement and observation. Aaron moved carefully among the instruments, aligning them with engraved diagrams and tracing their curves with his fingers, understanding that the room itself was a pedagogical system, demonstrating how observation, calculation, and reflection converged to reveal the universe's underlying harmony. At the center, a circular disc rested on a pedestal, engraved with intersecting spirals, lines, and symbols linking mathematical, astronomical, and natural principles. Placing a small brass instrument into one of its indentations caused a low grinding sound, and a hidden compartment slid open, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and instruments. The chamber's design rewarded patience and deliberate thought, emphasizing that knowledge was dynamic, interconnected, and cumulative. Along the walls, small metallic spheres etched with constellations were positioned on platforms in alignment with manuscript diagrams, forming a three-dimensional model of celestial and terrestrial interactions. Tracing these relationships, Aaron recognized the convergence of centuries of observation, calculation, and philosophical reasoning, a continuum of understanding spanning generations. Hours passed unnoticed as he explored manuscripts, tested instruments, and examined carvings, absorbing the meticulous care with which knowledge had been preserved. Beyond the chamber, a narrow archway, partially concealed by stone shelves, revealed another passage marked with subtle spiral motifs. Kneeling, Aaron discovered a circular indentation at its center and inserted the small metal clasp bearing the spiral symbol. The wall shifted with a grinding resonance, revealing a descending corridor that grew colder and heavier, the scent of centuries-old parchment intensifying, signaling that he was entering the library's deepest, most carefully guarded chambers. The walls depicted sequences of scholars observing, calculating, and safeguarding knowledge, juxtaposed with images of cities burning and libraries destroyed, emphasizing both the fragility and resilience of wisdom across generations. At the base of the corridor, Aaron entered a chamber smaller than those above, but densely packed with instruments, globes, bound manuscripts, and etched tablets linking mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Aligning a brass instrument with floor markings activated a hidden compartment, revealing additional scrolls, diagrams, and tools. The interactive design of the library was unmistakable. Each discovery led to another, forming a continuum of knowledge that demanded engagement, reflection, and reverence. Aaron understood that the recurring spiral motifs were more than decoration. They were philosophical symbols representing the outward expansion of understanding, connecting generations of scholars in an unbroken chain. As he prepared to continue into the next revealed passage, a profound sense of responsibility settled upon him. He was no longer merely an explorer. He had become a participant in a centuries-long continuum of guardianship, study, and discovery. Every corridor, chamber, and hidden mechanism bore witness to human curiosity, diligence, and devotion to understanding. Holding the lamp high, Aaron stepped into the darkness ahead, aware that the silent, wisdom-filled nights of the underground library stretched endlessly before him. Each spiral, each chamber, Each manuscript was a carefully preserved layer of knowledge, waiting to be discovered by those patient and reverent enough to follow, and he had become a living link in the unbroken chain of scholars who had preserved, expanded, and transmitted human understanding across the centuries, ensuring that the legacy of wisdom would continue unbroken into the future.